All right, all right. What's up, everybody? Thank y'all for coming on in. I see a couple people just made it right in, but just hit the like button whether you're catching it live or you're catching it after it's uploaded. Whether you're catching it live or catching it after it's uploaded, make sure you hit the like button. We're about to get on into this. It should be an interesting one. That was sparked from a discussion about what Black men want politically that came up on the last show. And I just thought, hey, Dr. Tierson Johnson wrote out a good Black male political agenda. So we're going to look at it, examine it, review it, go over it, and should spark a good conversation. So without further ado, let's get ready to go. Let's get it.
Peace, folks. This is X from TPOT Media. Open your mind and wake your black ass up. You know what time it is. Hit that damn like button as you make your way in the door. Grab a seat, settle in, get ready. It's the Grown Man Hour with your host, my man, Bernard Riley.
All right. What's going on, good people? What's going on? I see a lot of people made it in the building. Let me shout out the early bird squad, as I call you, before I bring the conservative into the conversation. But LB Crypto in the building. He says, we in here early. Please hit the like button and share the program to Facebook and Instagram. This is going to be another good one. Salute, Bernard. Absolutely. Random Black in here. Got his popcorn ready. I see you. Saint Valoy in the building. Shout out to Men's Daily Advice and Encouragement Channel. Like that name. The Space Kitchen in the building. Shout out to you. He said, ready for another good show 100. My man Joe Ethereal in the building says, salute Winthrop in the building. Shout out to you. He says, what thou doest. Okay. Jomo Cousins. That's a weird name. That's weird. Lando Calrissian. Shout out to you. Shout out to CP from KC5. I'm about to make it to the bottom of the list if I hurry. Domino King says Funky Town, Texas, Fort Worth, Texas. Lando Calrissian again, and C Gully in the building. Shout out to all of y'all. And we are joined, as you can see, every Saturday by the Hood Conservative. Welcome back.
Hey, what's going on, man? Happy Saturday.
Another Saturday. Now we're about to get into a good one. It might be a little tedious at times because it's going to be might be a little tedious because we're going to be going through looking at Dr. Tierson Johnson's 14-point Black male political agenda. We're going to be looking at that, checking that out. Some parts of it was a bit tedious. Some of it was real straightforward to the point and short. The first part of it was a little long and tedious, but we're about to definitely go through it. I believe, if I remember correctly, what sparked this, there was some talk during the last show because, well, every time we do these Saturday shows, they're always, either political or political adjacent, meaning like we're talking about women, but as your channel really embodies the whole notion that a lot of the stuff that we talk about when we're talking about black men and black women and all the social dynamics and everything is connected to politics. A lot of people don't fully acknowledge that. Your channel really embodies that. But then I think we was going from there, then we stumbled over into, at least I believe how the conversation flowed, we stumbled over into essentially talking about a black male political agenda. So that's what, prompted in my mind that Dr. T.S. Johnson had already a 14-point black male political agenda laid out, and I'd never even read it. So that was like, hey, that's a good topic for a show. So I think that's the genesis of how we got here. But yeah, to your memory, correct, that was pretty much how we ended up here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We were discussing, well, like you said, I kind of discussed the political side of this black male female gender war. I really do think it has more to do with politics than like actual interpersonal relationships. I think the politics has created things that were never really possible before in the interpersonal dynamics between black men and black women. And so I don't know if you're going to solve this problem in a simple manner of like conversation, which seems to be the approach for the most part. I think you really do have to address politics and really power. I think that's really what's going on here. Black men need to, in my opinion, address the political power that black women have accrued over the years. And through that conversation, I think we can sort of reset the dynamics between the individual black man and black woman. So that's why I kind of look at it from more of the political angle as opposed to just purely relationship stuff.
Right on, definitely. And I won't be on camera today, people. I'm on the road, not at home, and I didn't properly pack all my equipment, so I'm struggle streaming today. I'm struggle streaming real hard. I don't even got all my equipment, so so I won't be on camera today. But let's go ahead and get into it. I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna pull up the political agenda. I'm gonna pull up the political agenda. Give me a second here. Well, here it is right here. There it is right there. And you can see it right there on the screen, the 14-point Black Male Political Agenda by Dr. T.S. Johnson, PhD, and 20,000 plus members of the Brotherhood of the Onyx Report. You can see that right there. We do got PhDs in this space. And so, yeah, and they obviously, for obvious reasons, add a lot of value, add a different perspective. They a lot of times, got the actual research to support a lot of the stuff that we're saying. A lot of the stuff that we a lot of people just came on the internet yelling into a cell phone, shooting from the hip, and then it turned out that the PhDs who's been studying this stuff for a living, confirmed that a lot of people was right. These crazy black men on the internet was actually right. That's what the PhDs in this space definitely definitely end up doing for us. So definitely appreciate them for that. Go ahead.
There's like one major I wouldn't even call it a criticism because I don't disagree with the overwhelming majority of what's presented in here. Because you sent me this link early this morning, and I actually was up and I read the whole article. Well, not article. I read this whole, I don't know what you would call this paper. And right, I read through all the 14 points and all the sub points and everything. And the first part is a little tedious, but I think it was necessary because of the subject matter at hand. So you're going to get into that in a minute, obviously. But my major observation, and this is I'm going to present this problem knowing full and well I don't know how to solve it, but I think it is a slight issue, in that a lot of what's being said can be sort of addressed to all of men under like this Western American system, as opposed to most of these ideas being presented in a purely like black male. It's like, no, these aren't the problems of just black men. These are the problems of men. And while I do acknowledge that there may be a need for some, black male unity around certain issues, I don't know that everything mentioned here is purely a black male issue. So I question whether or not you greater or lessen the effectiveness of this whole platform by only focusing on the black male issue when there are like there's a broad wide range of men out in this country who will be affected by a lot of these very things that are mentioned in here. So I'm just curious as to how, like I said, I don't have an answer to it, but I just know that, that is an issue, that these aren't just black male problems. These are actually men problems in a greater sense.
Well, with you saying that right there, I'm going to go right to this line right here in the report. It says, it should be made unapologetically clear that these are not just for people of color or poor, etc. That's I think that was a way of just letting it known that this is for black men. Now, everything that was supposedly supposed to help black men, when other people were included in it, then other people ended up reaping the benefits, and black men seemingly stayed in the exact same spot, and other people, came up, so to speak. We understand how that went with affirmative action and everything, and the double minority status that black women have, or how I've been told that white women were the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action and things like that. So from that perspective, even though you're saying a lot of these things are men problems, are male problems, so to speak, would you agree that if we're going to get something passed, if black men are going to get something passed, it needs to be, close the door to everybody else. This is just for us, in short, fuck y'all, fuck everybody else, fuck people of color, women of color, people who are poor, non-binary, cis, whatever the fuck. There's a time and place to say, to hell with everybody else. This is for us. Do you understand that part?
I don't know if this is the time and place or the set of issues to even do that with, because again, it's a question of is it effective or not, right? Ultimately, that's what I really want to look at, whether or not this strategy is going to be effective or not. And what I can't get away from is the fact that of the 13% of the population that black people are, black men are what, less than half of that 13%? And so I don't know if we really gain strength and political momentum by isolating a teeny tiny minority of the political spectrum, where we could actually sell these ideas. Like, you could have black men being the face and the heart and soul of it all. And I'm not arguing against black involvement, but I'm just saying, if, like, just the way you said, if you close the door to every other group of men basically and say, fuck y'all, this is about us, I'm just asking the question, is that going to be more or less helpful in gaining your overall goals? And I don't think it will be. So I don't know that closing the door to every other man that suffers these same problems is an effective way to address these problems.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I understand your perspective. You're looking at it more along the lines of having a overall, just a man movement, so to speak, is more of what's needed. But
well, look at what you said about how the other quote black movements really led to gains not for black men but for women in general. And so I'm not the one making it about men and women. It's already about men and women. I just want to play with the rules as I understand them.
Mm-hmm. All right. Understand your perspective. Understand your perspective on that. But let's get into it. Number one on the list is one that's near and dear to my heart: family court reform. I agree with that wholeheartedly, that it needs to be reformed. So let's dig into it. I'll try to read through it. The family court's treatment of black men has unfairly and drastically diminished black men and boys' quality of life, and privileging women as the primary caregivers. A, child custody. This includes automatic 50-50 custody 50-50 child custody, as long as fathers can prove what mothers are required to, as far as being able to provide a stable and safe living environment. Once determined, pre-existing income-based alimony/child support judgments levied against Black men should be reassessed. Also, child support payments for either parent should be eliminated. Scroll to 27. Hold on. Okay. With 50-50 custody, and should only be considered if there isn't a 50-50 custody arrangement. That part 100% agree with. And again, I guess this is the part where you're going to say, hey, all men need this, but hell, whatever. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but yeah. But
I don't have to beat a dead horse, but I agree with the overwhelming majority of what's going to be said in here. I just think these ideas are more broad than Black. And it's going to be self-evident. That's why I said I don't have to beat the dead horse. It's going to speak for itself as we continue on.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, we don't even got to stay on that. But overall, you know, the first part of it knocks it out the park. That's something that I've been ranting and raving about. You know, a lot of people talk about that. What do they call it? I forgot what they call it. That financial abortion stuff. I mean, look, that ain't my movement. They put it on the ballot. I probably vote. I vote for it just because. But that ain't really my thing. 50-50 custody is where it's at. Eliminate child support. In that sense, if there's a 50-50 custody arrangement, meaning that you support the child when the child is with you and she supports it when the child is with her. Like that's just obvious and that's just common sense.
This is where I gotta throw out. I gotta put on my male feminist cap. Like no, I want true equality between the sexes. If women have rights over their sexual reproduction, why can't men have rights? Are we not equals?
No, listen, I understand the argument. That's why I said I would vote for it. Anything that will strip a little power away from them, I will vote for it. What I don't like about it, and I see, I hate to even I didn't want to go down this route. I didn't want to go down this route, but it's just a brute fact that when, and I'm going to make an argument and I'm going to refute my own argument. So just sit tight. When you look at the mere fact that it's already dudes out there being reckless with their seed, the financial abortion piece is going to incentivize them to be more reckless. However, the women are out there being reckless as hell, and they're incentivized to be more reckless. So I guess my argument is I don't want to push it in the direction of reckless for all. I want to push it in a direction of less recklessness. However, if they're going to be able to be incentivized to be reckless, and if it's on the ballot, an opportunity to tip the playing scale, if that's the dirty game we got to play, then goddamn it, I'll play it. I'll vote in favor of financial abortion. They need to call it something else, but I'll vote in favor of it if that was on the ballot. If it was on the ballot, I would vote in favor of it, but I would rather things, instead of moving to recklessness for all, I would rather it move in the direction of 50-50.
Okay, let's call it a TPO, termination of your parental obligations.
That sounds a lot better.
Right. That's really, we want to get clinical and clean about it. That's what I want. I want men to have the option to terminate their parental obligations, because essentially that is what women are given access to at multiple levels, whether it's outright abortions or even just adoptions, with this whole thing of like you can drop off a newborn baby, because, you know, like instead of throwing a baby in the garbage can, which, listen, women have done that stuff multiple times, but, you know, sugar and spice and everything nice. But either they drop them off at in a garbage can, or they can take them to a firehouse and, you know, everything is fine. No questions asked. So women have for a long time been given the right to terminate their parental obligations. Men deserve the same. This is not a nation of equality unless men have those same rights.
Yeah, no, agreed. As long as they have those rights, then that's why, like I said, that's why I said I would vote for it, but I would like to see it go in a different direction. But if they're going to have that shit, then we should have, you know, what you're saying. Say that again. The termination of what?
Termination of parental obligation, a TPO.
I like that. That just has a better ring to it than financial abortion. I like it.
And look, it's not even a gender specific term. It's a totally gender neutral term.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's okay. So the first thing on the list is those are making it in. We're reviewing Dr. Tiasan Johnson's 14-point black male political agenda. Number one on the list, family court reform. And the first thing that was tackled is child custody, of which I agree 100% with everything that was stated. And now we're at mandatory paternity testing at birth. I put a PH at the end of that, at birth. I'm absolutely 100% in favor of that. I heard a conversation recently, and there's a few stats that we talk about in this space that I can look at it, I can read it. I just have a hard time accepting it, and I'm somebody who accepts data, but it's some stuff that just, even deep down in all this red pill stuff, is still some numbers that just make me cringe. I can't help it. One of them is that 50% herpes rate. I just can't believe that. And the other one is when they do paternity test. Of the ones that they do when they actually go in and do the paternity test, I think it was something, you can correct me if I'm wrong, something like 30% of the time it was found out, who she thought was the father or who she wanted to be the father was not the father. Like that's one that just staggering, that I'm just like, what in the hell? But either way, bring on the mandatory paternity testing at birth. It's going to be a lot of man tears at the hospital. We just got to be prepared for that. It's going to be a lot of crying men at the hospital. But it is
There
what it
needs to
is.
be uniformed officers every time this happens. You need to have men with guns in the room. Well, maybe not even guns, but large batons or something like that, because stuff be going down. You're talking about a lot of volatile emotions in a precious moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, so I'm absolutely 100% for that. Before I throw it to you on that, but let me just read what it says. Prior to signing the birth certificate, newborn. Oh, I like that. Prior to signing the birth certificate, don't have them sign it and then do the test and then get them like they get you in Michigan. No. Prior to signing the birth certificate, newborn children should be given a DNA test to assure the parentage of the fathers, thus avoiding men being unjustly responsible for supporting children under false pretenses. This should be required prior to any issuance of child support judgments. Here. What you got on that?
Yeah, I can. Like I said, most of this is good stuff. It seems almost common sense at this point. Like, why don't we do these kinds of things? So, it's none of this even really sounds like brilliant and surprising. It's like, why haven't we done this already?
Yeah. Okay, I'm struggling on that word there. Addendum. Hold on.
Yeah,
that's it. That's right.
addendum.
Okay. Addendum A. Okay.
It's like an add-on.
What would you say?
No, it literally just means like an add-on. So this is in addition to what we're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't know what that meant. But anyway, once determined that the father has been this is about to get good. Once determined that the father has been misled regarding the child's parentage, no matter how long it has been, he should be excused from both the birth certificate and child support at his determination. And the exploited party should be subject to legally sanctioned reimbursement from the mother, the biological father, and relevant city, state, federal government offices. Interest should be 7% compounded annually, in addition to the principal owed to the injured party. Presumption of fatherhood be formally stricken down as established law. Good stuff there. And you're absolutely right. Some of this stuff some of this stuff is like on some. Well, why aren't we even already doing it? Because some of it is pretty. It seemed like it should be self-explanatory. Like if it was a way to I don't know, cheat. Go ahead. Just go ahead. If there was a way to cheat or trick a woman out of something like that, clearly it would be something put in place to make sure that it don't happen. So
I mean, it almost feels like the law exists just so bad things don't happen to women. Because it's like you got no problem with all this stuff happening to me, though, right? Like, it just feels that way at a certain point. Like, why haven't we done any of these common sense ideas?
Yeah. Reinstating. I mean, no, I'm sorry. Restituting. I think it's restituting at-fault divorce standards in alignment with gynocentric family court policies. No-fault divorce negatively impacted Black men by authorizing a massive shift in marital culture that dramatically underdeveloped them economically. Financial abortion is in here. You like that? What are we calling it now, though? You there?
I'm sorry. Yeah, we're calling it termination of parental obligations.
Okay, termination of parental obligation.
Yeah. I like how clean that word is, right? We're going to keep running with that one.
It's so clean. Termination of parental obligation. As we understand the law, it is a woman's right to choose whether or not she will carry a baby to term, put the child up for adoption, or abort it. Therefore, within the first 6 months of being informed about the pregnancy, men should have the right to financially disassociate themselves from pregnancy. Also, we should automate financial abortion for cases of female stealthing. I like that. That stealthing is was normally used to describe what men do, the unwanted or unknowing removal of the condom, meaning a female didn't know that he removed the condom. He's talking about female stealthing, which is, I guess that would be, he goes on to say, when a woman sabotages a male contraceptive. And I would even add lying about being on birth control. I would even add that in there. And go ahead.
I'm sorry. One of the reasons why I think we were saying it was a little bit tedious reading some of this stuff, and I think that's why I said it has to kind of be this way. And part of the reason for that is, how you said there's like a lot of PhDs and doctors in this space? Well, there's also a lot of accountants and lawyers in this space as well. And it's starting to show in this document here where like you've been really meticulous about the ins and outs of how you frame your argument from a legal standpoint and from also like from a procedural standpoint. So like the product of what the manosphere really is kind of coming out in this document.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes on to say, criminal charges should also be added. Criminal charges should also be added for the female stealthers. Child support value system. We advocate for instituting a system where goods, services, and time spent with a child should be should be calculated and valued at a dollar amount. Any remaining deficit to be paid in cash. Also, child support should be capped at $2,500 per child, regardless of income, except in the case of suggested practice addressed in letter I below. See Attorney Dennis Sperling. Right to lifestyle. Right to lifestyle. Post-divorce men to be entitled to the life they have been accustomed to in marriage. That's funny. That's funny because it reminds me of that Chris Rock joke where he was like, women go in divorce court and they're like, I'm accustomed to this and I'm accustomed to that and I'm accustomed to this. And he was like, I love, Chris Rock been kind of red pill for a while. He's like, I love for the day when men can go in the court, be like, okay, I'm accustomed to fucking her at least twice a week. I understand I can't do it now, but I should be able to get some pussy payments.
Chris been real for a minute.
Yeah. But But where is that? It says the post-divorce men should be entitled to the life they have been accustomed to in marriage. Thus, any judgment or consent determination made must ensure that the husband can enjoy the same privileges and lifestyle enjoyed before or during the marriage, whichever cost more to maintain. Okay, I can dig it. I can dig it. G, require formal child support management reports. Ensure that child support payments are earmarked specifically for approved child-related expenses only. Now that's one that's going to make
Yeah.
That's it's going to be blood in the streets for that one.
I was thinking the same thing. That's the toughest sell ever.
They not taking that one laying down.
Nah, and honestly, this is one of those things where, like, you know how you kind of have to you ask for something big so that you can negotiate down to something way less than what you started out with, but still acceptable. Like, this is the kind of thing where you'd be willing to sacrifice in the long term for some greater negotiations. It's like, all right. Listen, we'll take this one thing off the table if you give us a lot of this other shit we asking for.
Mm-hmm.
Because that whole that's going to be a tough sell. I mean, I almost feel a little bit of like I could even see myself making the argument on women's behalf. Like, look. It's one thing for you to have to dedicate a certain amount of money to the cause of raising your child, right? That's just the arbitrary number or whatever. But we had to pick a number, so that's the number. Now it doesn't. I don't see where you get the right to now like dictate how the funds are spent. Like she's still the one has to manage that household. And so, like, I could even understand the female side of the argument. Like, no matter how much money you've been obligated to pay, it is still on her to manage the household. So, like, that's a tough sell, bro.
It is. It is. And I've always said that. And I see it from, like, you know, being a single father, basically, even though it's 50-50 on paper, but the amount of time that they're with me, it might as well be a single father. It adds up to basically she kind of got like extended weekends. That's how I figure it. So I'm sitting there knowing that just the overall, just how do I explain this? When you have the kids, there's going to be more expenses. Like for example, for example, let's just say, you know, if it's 3 kids, instead of paying for a 2-bedroom apartment, you're paying for a 3-bedroom apartment. Your rent is higher just by you being a full-time custodial parent of the kids. You know, that's where it comes into place, where it can get hard to nitpick every, you know, nick and cranny of what was spent on the kids, what was spent, how much was spent here, how much was spent there, was it for the kids? If the rent is higher because there's an extra bedroom, if the energy bill is higher, if everything is higher because there's more people in the house consuming more energy, that's when that one get tedious. That it does. But either way it goes, like I said, same thing with the financial abortion. Put it on the ballot, I'll vote for it. I understand it's tedious, but put it on the ballot, I'll vote for it. But it says ensure that child support payments are earmarked specifically for approved child-related expenses only. Payments used on non-child related expenses must be accounted for by the custodial parent. Like that's but that's a big one. A lot of men have had that problem. They said, you know, they've said, I have no problem with paying it. It's about the accountability of where it's going. You know, they feel like
you got to put the IRS on the check, man. That's what you're really trying to do. That's what this whole thing boiled down to, is getting her audited by family court. I'm not totally against it. Yeah, I'm not totally against it.
I'm with it. I just know that that's a real hard, kind of tedious thing to do. You know, it's a hard, tedious thing to do, but I'm with it. Like, bring it on. Because the fact of the matter is, I know a lot of guys, they can't help but feeling and thinking, and they're accurate sometimes, that child support is going more towards getting her lace front wigs and getting her hair done, and money that she's spending out with her new dude, some bum dude she got around your kids. They going out on your child support. She's swiping the child support card out on their dates and shit that she paying for. It's like, no, I listen. So I'm like, no, I better not see no damn Outback Steakhouse. And I know my damn 3-year-old didn't order a damn a 20-ounce steak. Like, fuck all that. you know, she didn't bought the new dude a damn 20-ounce ribeye with your damn child support card. So yeah, I'm all for some oversight. I'm just saying it'll be a little tedious. I've been ignoring the chat because I've been had to follow up reading the report. But Captain Cisco in the building says that this proposal going to be presented to any politicians. I believe so. I don't think he would put all this together for it to not be presented to somebody. So, you know, in Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, I trust. I think that that this will make it through the right channels to the right people. So yeah, yeah.
And also, I think just the fact that he's you know, he is who he is. He's a part of academia. He's sort of climbed the ladder to get to a certain position, and for him to put his stamp on this, and not just him, but a lot of the other people associated with it from their own respective positions, it sort of just creates something. Now this is officially a part of the conversation. They've introduced something into the universe, and so it's a start at the very least, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no doubt. Okay. And I like this one. Prohibit jailing for failure to pay child support. Yeah, I don't think you should be jailed for failure to pay any bill, or you know, that's just silly to me. You know, garnishment. Okay, I mean, whatever. Community service. But locking somebody up, no, I can't get jiggy with that. So yeah, they definitely, you know, definitely right to put that in there. But it says such incarceration frequently punishes men for being poor more than anything else. This in turn increases Black male unemployment and further hurts families' economic stability. All right. Income floor for child support. There should be a set minimum income for anyone on child support. If someone is chronically under this floor in terms of income, then state governments should provide opportunities for them to intern at an apprenticeship in a trade. Okay. Only if they quit and refuse to work in an apprenticeship should they be incarcerated. Yeah, okay. See, I agree with everything except for the incarcerated at the end. But
I don't understand why they would include that part when they're generally against being incarcerated for child support. It seems like so, and I'm kind of against the whole concept on its face. Like, it's basically debtor's prison. We not supposed to be thrown in jail behind monetary debt. So I would throw that whole last thing off the table too.
Mm-hmm. All right. Child support and alimony assistance programs where it can be proven that a man's child support and alimony judgment requirements are causing a practical impact on his standard of living. The state government and municipality shall pay the cost in whole or in part, but no less than 66% of the total cost of the child support and alimony payments. Tax filing options and income tax at income tax time.
So hold on. Is the government supposed to pay my my alimony and my child support? Is the government going to help me out?
I didn't really understand that part. I think is that what you're saying? They were saying.
That's what it seems like. I mean, the government's going to contribute a certain percentage to the debt I owe, basically.
Yeah, that's what it looked like, but it went over my head. I read it and it just didn't compute because it just
where it can be proven that a man's child support and alimony judgment requirements are causing a practical impact on his standard of living. So stop right there. If you can make a case that this debt is such a huge burden that it is like drastically reducing your physical standard of living, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, moving on, the state government and municipality shall pay the cost in whole or in part, but no less than 66%. of the total cost of the child support and alimony payments. Now, bruh, that was a nice try, but you know damn well this white man ain't about to pay your alimony judgment for you.
Yeah, like that's why I think that's why I didn't understand it, because it just looked like I had like a man quit while you ahead type of feeling. like you at the casino, like you try. If you get everything else on this list, you was like we good. Like man, let's just put some stuff on there. We know we ain't gonna get everything, so let's just put some stuff on there we know we're not gonna get. So just give them something to take off. I don't know, but yeah, I don't see that one happening. But hey, dream on, keep hope alive. But all right, yeah, I don't see that one going. But at income tax time, they believe that some women. Okay, here we go. At income tax time, it is believed that some women sell their children's Social Security numbers to friends, family members, etc. Then just go on and go full gangster. Don't say it is believed. We know some women are auctioning off children during income tax time. We know what that is. So either when the mother is not working or has maxed out her 2-child benefit to receive income credits. Thus, whenever a third party submits a tax return claiming to care for another person's child, any child support orders to the mother of stated child should be rendered void. Ooh. Let me make sure I'm seeing that right. Whenever a third party submits a tax return claiming care of a person's child, any child support orders to the mother of stated child should be rendered void. Man, I like that.
No, because it is a little bit of like just a tad bit of open fraud.
Yeah.
If you think about it, you're going to claim basically financial responsibility over this child for the whole year, essentially, as the mother, but then turn around and say, actually, no, this person was majorly, like, took a major financial responsibility over the child. And so I want this person to suddenly get the credit for that. There is a little bit of it opens the door for graft, put it that way.
Yeah. Or denial of third party's claim on the child as a dependent. This shall fall under saving tax dollars. The natural question should be, why is the mother being paid for a child under the care of a third party? Welfare benefits and incentives for women fuel the single mother phenomenon. So to eliminate welfare contingencies or to incentivize contingencies for fathers, we propose a cap on subsidizing single mothers and or subsidize single fathers. All right. Any child support paid should be considered earned income due to it being taxed. Women are allowed to claim child support as an extra earned income that improves their credit and ability to finance vehicles and other products and services. Men who pay child support are not allowed to claim payments made when filing taxes, even when the amount can be a third to even 50% of their income. Yeah. We advocate policies that exempts child support payments from the, looking at this really just crystallizes something that we, already knew, that the degree in which they do everything to try to incentivize them to basically be reckless and single mothers, and they do everything to try to disincentivize the other end. Like we're gonna make it miserable for you. We're gonna make it wonderful for them, but it's gonna be miserable for you. And that's just a weird thing to do. That's a weird thing.
I told you, you just come away with that observation that as you go deeper down the rabbit hole of what is allowed to happen to you, it's like, wow. So the whole thing is just set up so the girls get an easy ride, huh? Like you just start to feel like that after a while. I can't shake that feeling,
Yeah.
And then, I was looking at this too. The whole child support debt actually affects your credit, right? So I'm thinking if you can get bad credit for not keeping up to for falling behind in child support, then you should also be able to get good credit for being on time with your child support. Meaning you should get a boost in your credit rating if you're up to date and all that. Let's make it fair on both sides of the equation here.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that is a bill, that is a debt that your ass pay on time. Yeah, no doubt. We advocate policies that exempt child support payments from the applicant's gross income when they apply for public housing and or housing assistance. The payment is counted as income for the custodial parent and counted in the gross income for the non-custodial parent. Their gross income dictates their acceptance into the program and their rent amount. Some men may not qualify due to their gross income being over the limit, but he may not actually bring the amount home due to child support payments. His rent may be exceptionally higher since HUD states that 30% of the gross income should go to rent. This leads to a plethora of issues for many brothers in the community, such as Black male homelessness, joblessness, and the propagating of children born out of wedlock. Yeah, a lot of this stuff really does. I mean, you reading it, you can just see how it does just incentivize more child out of wedlock. Yeah, it just you can just see it. You can just see it. Revising the child support formula. The child support is treated as another form of alimony. Two things should be addressed by the family court. 50-50 custody should eliminate child support, assuming expenses are jointly paid by both parents. The formula that determines child support is predicated on an outdated model of women not working. Now that the labor participation is fairly equalized in terms of gender, the notion used by some states of children requiring 25 to 50% of the parent's income should be paid in equal measure by both parents, but reducing. Men's majority child support default status, where men are the secondary parent, needs to be reassessed. See the tender years doctrine. Yeah, we talk about that from time to time. Then it goes on to say the 25 to 50% child support for men required to pay it who do not have 50-50 custody should have their payments prorated to a percentage-based judgment against her, usually against her labor. He's saying it's
I
usually
told you that you could tell this whole thing was written by lawyers. This is like the driest legalese ever. You kind of have to be used to reading law and contracts and all that to really get a quick understanding of what they're trying to tell you here. Because I'm reading ahead of you and I'm trying to go over this stuff a couple of times. Like, bruh, this is it's good stuff, but it's kind of tedious and complicated to layer it out so you understand what it means in your mind.
Yeah, no doubt. But we've made it out of the child custody reform part of it. And we're getting into education. So I did want to make it like that part. That was my favorite part of it, by the way. But it was real tedious. So I did want to get past that because a lot of the other ones are like, real quick hitting and straight to the point. Real quick hitting and straight to the point. So it's flow a little quicker. Oh shit! Now I lost my place. Where the hell was I?
At education.
Yeah, no, I just couldn't find it. I was looking for the bold print. All right, so number 2 on the list. We did all that, and we only made it. We're only at the number 2. But educational institutions play a huge role in influencing Black boys and men from preschool through graduate school. Yet the discrimination and underemployment they experience at the hands of underdevelopment. Yet the discrimination and underdevelopment that they experience at the hands of teachers, practices, and administrative bureaucracy and educational policies that do a great disservice to the supposed mission to educate Black males. Now, A on the list is single sex pedagogy and institutions. I don't know what pedagogy means. That's new, another new word on me.
Yeah, pedagogy. It's some kind of what I think it means is like the methodology of teaching. But basically, it's, I mean, that's basically how I understand the term. I've never actually looked it up in the dictionary, but basically, what they're talking about is rearrange how you even approach teaching boys. And I agree with the substance of what they're about to say, by the way, because I support the concept of like, male and female schooling, separate the genders up until like they're college age or something like that. And I was actually having a long discussion about education on my panel the other day, and there needs to be a lot of changes to the educational system across the board.
Agreed. Yeah, make sure you hit the like button. 155 people in the building. Make sure y'all hit the like button. Make sure y'all hit the like button. Let's see. As there is documentation, did I already read that? As there is documentation to suggest that boys perform better in all male environments, particularly under male teachers, it is proposed that boys be educated in environments that are all male, preferably Black, and rooted in pedagogy. That's what it's called. That's it. Pedagogy.
Yeah.
That seeks to improve their performance by prioritizing their history, culture, and gender. Okay, improve their performance by prioritizing their history, culture, and gender. Okay, by prioritize. I don't know what you mean by prioritizing their history.
I know exactly what that means,
Right.
And this is something I kind of poke fun at, and I've always questioned, well, not always, but I've recently started looking at the issue and just begun questioning the value of the whole ethnic studies department, like Black studies and all that. Like, listen, I am not against learning about the important Black figures of such and such part of history, and I think they should be fully enveloped into the entire, educational process to whatever degree you could manage it. However, I question this as a graduate of like the Black Studies department, right? And you come out of it with a Black Studies degree, you're a master of Black Studies now. What can you actually do in the real world? Like, what job set do you now have as a young adult going out into the job market? And so that's really where I come at. Tell me.
Yeah, you can teach Black studies.
See, and this is the problem. Like, that's the problem. Like, it's not. I want it to be something with substance and a point to it, but I don't know that it really is that. So when they say that Black boys need to be specifically taught by Black men about Black history stuff, I'm like, no, can we focus on math and language, like, the reading, writing, and arithmetic? Can we do the simple things that made people smart for all the time up until now? Like, just teach regular stuff. Like, why you gotta teach the Black stuff? You can't, not everything is a Black history lesson. I need to know that my son can do advanced mathematics, all right? I don't think he needs to learn Aesop's fables to do advanced mathematics.
I get completely where you're coming from, and it's something. And I've had this discussion with quite a few people. Or well, let me just explain it like this: there's a lot of people that are of the belief that if you taught Black children a different type of history, they'll have a different type of mindset, and they will view themselves differently, and they psychologically won't have all the roadblocks in belief that they can't do it because of what they think or feel about themselves. There's a lot of people
that requires way too many leaps of faith to get to that point. How do you even know that all these kids across all this time and space are suffering from very similar psychological realities? Well, because they Black, huh? So it's because they Black. They all got the same psychological outlook on things, right? It's because they Black. Sounds racist, bro.
Yeah, but the part the part of this that I do agree with is that, you know, male teachers, preferably black male teachers, teaching black boys. I do think they need to see that, I think a non-black male teacher will obviously, suffice and do the job and teach the math, reading and writing all the same. I do think that, but I like the idea. I like the idea, the optics of it all, and I guess that's where I do like it. Far as them seeing black, black boys, seeing black men in black authority positions that they got to listen to and respect and everything like that. Yeah, I do think that make a difference. I do think
I
that
wouldn't even fight you on that, and I think my argument doesn't change by joining you in that stance, simply because we're not even talking about some mythological like we're not drawing from a mythological narrative. We're not assuming to understand all the kids' psychological profile based on their blackness and their racial trauma and all that stuff, their epigenetic suffering and shit like that. It's simple. It's a very simple, direct method. You're giving children someone they can model themselves after in real time. So on that level alone, like, yeah, of course, that makes perfect sense. Especially like, let's target the approach a little bit more. You're more likely to have a heavy black population in an urbanized setting, right? So in those areas in particular, it's even more critical to have a little bit more men than we probably have right now, as far as like advancing the prospects of the young black men, because now we're talking about actual live working models, not some kind of mythological leap of faith about what your blackness can do. Like, no. You see that dude right there? Be like him.
Yeah. No, agreed. But all right. Moving forward. Preparatory reading, STEM, educational support. 10% of the city, state, and federally targeted resources for incarceration be diverted to educational after-school programs. Okay, educational after-school programs for ADOS boys. Even funds earmarked for special education can be used to draft male college-level teaching assistants to create an all-male educational support structure. Also provide tax breaks for private companies for many philanthropically for companies who may philanthropically donate materials, tech, etc. Lastly, cable/internet companies to be incentivized by federal tax policies to provide free high-speed internet. Okay.
The second half of that I kind of like. When in the first part, like when they say drafting more male teachers, like it becomes an issue of, can you really fill the slot with the people at hand? So I don't
Yeah.
know how you just automatically boost the numbers, like unless there are just people waiting to take these jobs that we never really counted before. I don't know how you just snap your fingers and get to that point. But on the other hand, if you're going to incentivize big tech and big corporations to put their thumb on the scales, now you'll start to shift the numbers, because now you're talking about actual motivations for incentivizing individual people again.
Yeah. It would have to go multiple ways. Like something like this, it will take a collective effort. Like if they were able to pull that off, where they separated, black boys, did single sex education, and all male teachers, and yes, you would be able. I think there will be a percentage of black male teachers sprinkled all around that will gravitate to teach at those schools, but it would have to be I won't even say something in place, but just a cultural change of men who are interested or remotely interested in education to see the value. And by men, I'm talking young men at that point, who are college age, or because like we will basically have to we'll have to basically build more black male teachers to accommodate. You know what I mean? If you get what I'm saying.
Well, that's exactly the point. Like, it's kind of well known that the educational field in general isn't really that welcoming to men. It's far more friendlier to women in general, and then the LGBT has basically dominated certain sectors of the educational institution. So it's quietly pushed out a lot of you just the regular guys that would have wound up as teachers. They wind up doing something else now. So if you can kind of turn that tide a little bit on a cultural level, like just make teaching a little bit friendlier to men in general, you would sort of help solve a lot of these problems just for the fact of having men and that male energy coming into place now.
Yeah. Nick Taylor says, stop having blue-haired lesbians teach anything.
Facts.
Yeah, just checking out the comments. Haven't been able to look too much at the comments. I've been reading the documents, but shout out to everybody in the building to see y'all. I see y'all in there. The admin, if you're there, highlight good comments or questions that they're asking. Not too many. Not don't overload it. But yeah, because I'm not watching the chat. I'm not watching the chat that much.
Yeah, I haven't really seen too many of your mods and admins today. I don't think anyone's really around.
Well, there's an admin in the back that I believe is here, maybe. But but all right. All right. Affirmative action. This would be a good one. Now we had number 3. At number 3 on the list, affirmative action. And I think you have. Well, no, I'm just gonna read it and then I'll throw it to you. All right. Double minority status for Black males. Black is minority, male is not minority, but so I might have to word that. I understand where it's going because I read it, so I know where it's going. But anyway, double minority status for Black males, where they have access to employment and higher payment income floors based on their race and gender. This is in response to generations of policies that disproportionately disadvantage Black males on the basis of their race and gender, most particularly for affirmative action practices from the 1980s onward that prioritize white women and Black women over Black men. We discussed that earlier. Your thoughts?
I think we would get a lot more bang for our buck if we just sort of erased those said policies that benefited white women and Black women over Black men. Instead of trying to create our own affirmative action, can we just kick affirmative action out the whip? Like, we don't need this no more. We better now. We don't need this medicine anymore.
That's more along the lines of how I think. That's more along the lines of how I think. It is a fair question, and I'll throw this to you. Okay, they get rid of it completely, then still what happens to the market to do? Okay, there is no affirmative action. So we get rid of affirmative action. Now more Black men are going to be hired. Like, so, I mean, do you think you think it's going to just play out like that?
In a larger sense, I think we haven't really even begun to question just how drastically the landscape has changed in terms of like HR department hiring practices. Just the fact of the basic concept of the double minority, what that has done across like the hiring, just for hiring practices across major cities. Like every time you go into like, let's say you're in, whatever Black metropolis, right? Could be what, Baltimore, St. Louis, Chicago, right? Any government office you walk into is probably 70-30 female to male.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't happen organically. That happened because of policy.
Yeah.
And then frankly, look, if you really want to extrapolate a little bit further, these sort of policy disparities are what lead to the very male-female gender conflicts that we talk about in the manosphere, the gender war. Women like, we don't need no men. And the men are like, well, the women are too good to be bothered with. And the whole thing kind of comes from this unfair tipping of the scales, where it's just a lot easier for women to gain access to the tools of advancement. And so their success is artificially propped up, but it will never be acknowledged as so, because who cares? I got it how I got it, right? And the reality is we kind of bending the system. We're changing the rules specifically for women to be for women to advance. And I think it has negative, deleterious effects on the social fabrics of whatever community you're looking at.
No, yeah, no, definitely agree. Definitely agree. So I didn't even think about that, because now you got me thinking. If it's 70-30, men to women, give or take. I don't know if that's actual stats or if you just eyeballing it, but it does certainly look like that. Actually look like more when you look at government jobs, or yeah, okay, 70-30. That doesn't happen by accident. That's definitely an issue. So you should say, as far as affirmative action, just scrap the whole thing instead of making sure that we get our own special treatment or hand up in affirmative action. And I know some people have that view of, the hell with all that. Let's okay. This is what I'm getting at. Black men, we run into this problem. At least black men of a certain mindset run into a problem of, some would look at getting what he has there, that double minority status for black males, that are males where they have access to employment at higher payment, income floors based, and all of that, blah, blah, blah. Some people will look at that as a gaining of power, because we definitely look at it as women gained power when they did it. But it seems like you're of the view that is gaining a handout, and I think that's a problem that men run into. Some men of a certain mindset are going to run into when we start talking about that. It's like, you're saying scrap the whole system and let's compete, versus give us a handout. But when women get that handout, we view it as them gaining power. So why do we have a hard time looking at that as men, or in this case, black men, gaining power in that situation?
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess you're right. I don't see it as men gaining power, and I don't see it as women gaining power per se. It's more like being granted privilege, and that gives you the it creates the impression that you have power, but it's just privileges are being granted. And so I think when we're talking about the male side of things, yeah, I'm never really going to be about granting men privileges per se. I'm kind of going at it from just what your rights should be. Your basic rights should be protected. I don't know that I'm really trying to push for more privileges for men. And
Yeah.
from another angle, I don't know if this really solves the problem, because now, all right, look at what you're asking for in total. We already have a situation where black women and women across the board are granted privilege, right? So now black men are going to be somehow granted the same privileges that women are granted. I don't know if there's that many. Is there that much room left in the privilege pie? Like, how much privilege can we hand out?
Yeah, I just cringed at just the sound of that. Black men being granted the same privileges that women are granted. It's like, see
My bad. Did I say that like that? That's how it looks, though.
I know. That's why I do run into a problem with this, even though, like, if somebody is doing the work to make something happen and it looked like it will actually move the needle and help black men, I'll fall back and not going to criticize it. But yeah, it does look that way. It does. I mean, it does look that way. But I'm two-sided on this one. I'm really kind of two-faced on this one, because I'm not going to get in the way of somebody trying to get something done. I'm not going to get in their way. But I'm always I look at those optics and it's like, man. So I am of that view that you have. Scrap the whole thing and everybody roll up their sleeves and compete. I am of that view. But when you said, "Oh, I'm sorry," did I say it like that? Because that's how it looks. funny.
Nah, like really, it's like you're trying to put black men on the same level as women across the board. It's like we're going to be protected, like what unicorns? We're an endangered species too now. I don't really like the direction that takes us in, and I think a safer way to go is, like you said, just scrap most of it because this is what could happen at the end of it all. That could be the actual rebirth of little like niche black industries, because if you do run into the problem of black people can't get on at this and that place, there is very very little actually preventing black people from working together. It's a matter of choice and opportunity at this point. So you can start to create pockets of black industry, basically, if that's what really, I don't know that it's going to have to be that way, but I'm just saying, if you really had to go that way, oh yeah, this is the best time in the history of everything to do that then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I've always had that view when you look at black unemployment and all of that. Yeah, more black businesses would help black unemployment. So it's like those are those are things, and that's where I get divided, because it's certain things that we got to roll up our sleeves and get done. That we can do ourselves, and there's nothing stopping us, from doing it. And so when I get up that mindset, then that I feel like there's some. I feel like I think that there are some aspects of this that's that may not be necessary. I mean, especially speaking to the affirmative action aspect of it, but yeah, I think you solved that problem with, like you said, if being left in position where, hey, there's this, it opens the door for black industries to thrive. To not, I don't even know if thrive is the right word. To just be created. Like, let's just create it. Let's build it. That's one view of it. That's one view of it.
Honestly, I'm also of the mind that ultimately black people need that sense of raw direct competition. I think that's part of the reason why, like, in the face of other non-American black groups, the ADOS and the FBA, part of the reason why there is some of that tension is that other black groups have internalized this sense of productivity and competition and just I want to achieve, and it's something that I think black people need to embrace more of. And I think if we get put in a position where it's like, now look, you have to make it happen no matter what, like you won't get a lot of the excuses you've been allowed before. I think overall we will do better in the long run for that. We have to face raw competition to make ourselves better.
Yep. Car designer Chris in the building says, yep, it was an overcorrection. Now the only way for black men to get hired is when more black men just outperform other people. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that, car designer Chris. Do appreciate it. All right, let me dig back into this. But that one was short. Number 4, targeted homelessness programs. Targeted homelessness programs, especially post incarceration. Black men should be prioritized for housing, as they are most often turned away despite having housing vouchers. Consequently, as Black America constituted half of America's homeless pre-COVID, remain to be male. This makes black males the most susceptible group to homelessness. Your thoughts on that one?
I think that bears true mostly because black people tend to congregate in the urban areas, so you're going to just get a lot more of the homeless in the urban centers, and then a lot more of those people are going to be black. But homelessness is just again, it's one of those things that all men kind of have to. I think a lot of men in their lifetime have been in the position of being a paycheck away from the street. I don't know that women kind of face that same reality where it's like homeless shelters are essentially set up for women, whereas there are very few homeless shelters specifically for men in comparison. And it's just the fact of life. As a man, you got to deal with that. I mean, look, how many black men get kicked out of their mama's house way before it was time? That's a big part of that. Well, not a big part maybe, but that's a part of that whole situation as well. Just being a man somehow puts you a lot closer to homelessness in general. And then now, yeah, obviously, then there's little peculiarities of black life that make that problem more acute.
Yeah, yeah, and I generally agree with everything that you said there. And there's something that we've talked about before when it comes to male homelessness versus female homelessness. A woman won't be homeless for so long. Somebody will. This ain't even a show for that. We ain't going there. But a woman walking the street with nowhere to sleep at night. There's a man who will gladly let her in his bed. That's just the reality of the situation. Yeah. So yeah, a man. It's going to be more men homeless, and then like you said, situations with a lot of black people. There's going to be more black men homeless. However, as far as what could be done to prevent that, let me just scan it real quick again. He says black men should be prioritized for housing as they are most often turned away despite having housing. What are housing vouchers?
So basically, the Section 8 system, and there
Okay.
may be other little lesser known programs, but Section 8 is generally how people will see that. And you get a voucher where the government will match a certain amount, sometimes the majority of your rental costs for a year. And it's, basically a contract between the government and the landlord. But because it's ran by the government and, the government is staffed mostly by women, essentially for the benefit of women, you get a lot of women placement. Women get prioritized if you have children. Just being a woman might prioritize you a little bit, but if you have a child or even having more children might prioritize you a little bit more. Like, I'm sure there's all kind of levels to the system of how it actually places people ahead of the game, but it all shakes out in a way that men are at the bottom of the list. So there are men who get the benefits, but not at the same rate as women and women with children, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and because I do have a degree of ignorance, I'll plead some ignorance when it comes to just the overall problem of homelessness, because there's a lot of people I've spoken to that has been homeless, and one thing that I found is people who find themselves homeless, who are normal, mentally healthy people, they're normally not homeless for that long. Normally, the people that get homeless and stay homeless are people that got serious problems going on aside from homelessness. And so I support something helping those people. I support something out there helping those people. So I'm for it. I'm for it because like the people, they're every city has them. I know my city has them. People that if you may go a little moment where you may see somebody like several times over the course of a couple months walking the streets or standing in front of a liquor store or 7-Eleven or something, getting change, asking people for change or whatever. And, you may mess around and go 2 years without seeing this person. And then you see him again, he's back in front of those same stores. And then when you examine them, yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, just reflect the reality. It's a lot of them. They got a lot of them got mental issues and stuff that need to get. They need to be taken care of. So a lot of them. So it's not a situation just like I've talked to a lot of people on my channel that can say that. Excuse me. Talked to a lot of people on my channel that can say, yeah, I was homeless for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. Like Game Changer slept in his car for a longer amount of time than what you would think was normal. I forgot how long, but there's a lot of people that run into that. But normally, mentally healthy person figures out a way to land on their feet.
That's been my experience as well. And I guess that's one of those things that life has to teach you as you sort of make your way through life. But you kind of come up, I guess you get taught the empathetic version of things where like they're just suffering people and bad luck has befallen them constantly. It's like, their life has just been one series of misfortunate events after another. And you kind of, if you ever have the pleasure or displeasure of actually knowing people in these unfortunate situations, people really stuck at the bottom, you get a more intimate understanding of why they're homeless, and it becomes a situation where it's like you are your problem, dude. Like it's really that simple though. Like you are your problem, and then that's why you said people have mental issues. They got stuff going on. A lot of it's addiction slash mental issues. That's usually the two combinations. I don't know if the mental issues lead to addiction or the addiction creates mental issues, but you usually got two combinations. I mean, you got combinations of those two things going on.
Yeah.
And from the outside looking in, and you just sort of, as time goes on, you kind of just resolve yourself to the idea that, look, I can't fix what's wrong inside you. And then you extrapolate on that, like, look, so if I just give you money, you're just gonna be a homeless nigga getting high tonight. If I put you in a house, you're just gonna be a homeless nigga with a trap house. Like, it's not gonna solve the problem of you. And so it's not what people think it is, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It really is more an issue of the individual. It's not like the structural problems that people try to tell you it is.
Yeah, but no, the point is being made in the chat. Like, yeah, Rod and Game Changer both slept in a car for, was homeless for a month or so. But like I said, a mentally healthy person without a drug problem will figure out a way to land on their feet. A lot of these people, yeah, they got mental issues and drug problems, and so yeah, they need help beyond the homelessness. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, and I think that's what you were more or less trying to say too. But let's move it on. I think this one sort of connects to the affirmative action when targeted unemployment programs as Black males experience unemployment at rates of 40 to 50% in over 34 major cities prior to COVID. And okay, well, that 40 to 50% seems pretty damn high, but I didn't know that. Okay, well, just moving along. As males experience unemployment at rates for 40 to 50% in over 34 major cities prior to COVID, they need advocacy and policy that prioritizes their employment on both racial and gendered grounds. Got anything on that one?
Well, I was thinking about the homeless. I mean, not homeless. I was thinking about the unemployment numbers, and I don't know if the numbers are accurate or not. We're just going to take it on face value, but at the 40%. But I think if the numbers really are that high, we're not dealing with a problem of the legal or economic structure per se. I think this is something in the This is a cultural phenomena, and I think some economists have sort of talked about that people who just sort of phase out of the working system or whatever, like however they frame it, people who just sort of fall out of the economy, and I don't know, whatever, they work off the books and they get paid other jobs that they don't really have to report or whatever. But I think maybe there's something else going on. It's not just purely like well, I think there's a story in the numbers. If it really is that high, then there's definitely a story to the numbers, and it's probably deeper than just some structural racism going on.
Yeah, and this is the part where again, where I look at it, I say, if somebody implements this and Black male unemployment shrinks, then hey, I'm happy with it. But yeah, so yeah, targeted unemployment programs as Black males experience unemployment at rates over 40 to 50% in 34 major cities prior to COVID. They need advocacy and policy that prioritizes their employment on both racial and gender grounds. That just sounds more like, I mean, it's really just a connected to what he said about the affirmative action, basically giving men giving Black men some type of double minority status where, they would, basically get prioritized and hired in the same way that Black women as well as white women benefited from affirmative action. That's essentially what that is. Now, this should be an interesting one. I actually, because this one is long and tedious too. Well, not quite as long as the child custody reform part, but this one is long and tedious too. And this deals with law enforcement. And I got a feeling you might have some disagreement with this one. And so yeah, we're going through
I'm gonna hold my comment.
We're going through Dr. Tiasan Johnson's 14-point Black male political agenda. Dr. Tiasan Johnson, if you don't know. And you're right, I got no moderators in there because we bare minimum should be spamming Dr. Tiasan Johnson's link through the chat room and the link to this article. So let me do the responsible thing here so people can go and check it all out for themselves. Let me put that. The moderators, y'all know what to do. Put Dr. T's channel through the chat room. Those who are not subscribed, most of you probably are subscribed to him, but you definitely want to go to his websites. That's the link right there, so you can check this out for yourself. And I do, like I said, in Dr. Tiasan Johnson, I trust. I do think that steps will be made to get this presented as Captain Cisco said. He said, "Is this proposal going to be presented to any politicians?" I do believe so. I do believe so if it hasn't already. So yeah, we'll see what happens on that one. But I definitely support Black men, particularly PhDs, particularly those in this space rolling up their sleeves, doing something, presenting something. So I'm all for it. So, but Deadly Raver in this building, and more people need to talk about this. So that's part of the reason why I'm highlighting it as well. More people need to talk about this. But Deadly Raver in the building says, "What up, Bernard? Just passing through to show some love. Keep on doing what you're doing." Absolutely, no doubt. I certainly will. Absolutely, I certainly will. And Jackie Jack dropped a $2 super chat on it. Thank you very much, Jackie Jack. Do appreciate that. I think that was it. Oh, damn, the men's not in the back. I don't got the men in the back to start the super chats. All right. So hopefully I didn't miss nothing. But all right. So let's go ahead and get into this.
No, I don't think you missed anything. Huh?
All right. Cool. All right. Law enforcement has been a major barrier and at times a source of injustice for Black men. Criminal sentencing reform. I think I'm definitely going to agree with this one to some degree. Well, let's read it. Black men should be arrested and sentenced to no greater degree than any other member of any race who commit the same crime. The data shows that on those sentences where it's 2 to 4 years, or you can get a 5 to 10 year sentence or something like that. It's some data that shows that Black men gets the higher end of that. I believe that in this country we do that 2 to 4 year shit just for situations where there may be some nuance. There may be some somebody committed that crime, but it was it wasn't as cold blooded, so it wasn't as egregious. I don't know the exact reason why. I know the exact reason why.
I'm gonna put up a really simple and then probably something that happens often if you really look at this situation. It's not necessarily that the crime one for one was it's the exact same crime, but you got punished way more just because you're Black. I think if you actually take into account criminal histories and then run the numbers, it might kind of skew in a different direction, and then you'll find out is maybe it's because of other things on top of them just being Black.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of debate on this because I heard someone presented it as no, people of different races with very similar histories got different sentences. Then I've heard some argue that no, that wasn't the case. The histories was different, or nobody's history is exactly the same, and or blah 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 blah. And so I've heard it argued on both sides with this, and so they've done a lot of investigations on that to where they've admitted that the system is flawed in that way, and they even use the word racist. I've read something and heard it talked about where they basically described it in that way. So it may be something to it. It may be something to it to where, and I've said this before, some 19, 20-year-old, Black guy does a breaking and entry, and we got a majority white jury and all of they may look at him. They may look at a white kid See, I'm falling for it too. I called the white person. I called the white 19 to 20-year-old a kid. They may look at him as, oh, he's just a kid. He's young. He made a mistake, and he may get a little smack on the wrist. But 19, 20-year-old black kid, no, that nigga knew exactly what the fuck he was doing. And so they'll give him the higher end of that 1 to 2 years. Like, I think that's probably a thing. That's a human element in the system. I think that's the case. So, I mean, I think the only way you kind of get rid of that is get rid of that whole 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, and just draw a straight line, just a flat line that this crime gets X number of years, and just leave it like that. That way everybody's getting the same system. So even if it's a human element in the system where, they're looking at a black male differently than a white male or whatever.
I think you're going to have a hard time with that, and it's not even for purely racial reasons at all. You can throw race out the window with this argument. It's just for the fact that now you're in the realm of totally doing away with what they would call mitigating circumstances, right?
Damn it! I know.
Right. Yeah, so like now it's like you're at the point of throwing away everything related to the nature of the crime and just saying, all right, listen, you shot somebody and you shot somebody, and both shootings are exactly the same, when in reality that's never the case.
Yeah, I gave an example before and I got accused of caping, but I said it's a difference between if somebody just woke up because it was Tuesday and the wind was blowing and they shot somebody in the head, versus a woman who's been married for 20 years and let's just say she's been getting her ass beat for 20 years, and then one day just enough was enough, she snapped and she shot him in the head. But he wasn't beating her ass that day. she the whole time he was at work, she had the gun in her hand.
That's murder, bro. She got to go down for 25. I want to hear that shit, my nigga.
He was standing up with the gun in her hand, pacing back and forth in the living room for the whole 8 hours he was at work. She was that tired and shot his ass when he walked through the door. I do think it's different, her shooting him versus somebody just shooting somebody because it was Tuesday and the wind was blowing. If it's 25 to life, okay. The guy who shot somebody because the wind was blowing, he get life, she get 25 and then go free. How about that?
All right, yeah. Now we can split the hair like that. I can live with that.
But she ain't getting a manslaughter smack on the wrist. She ain't getting no Amber Geiger treatment in this mug. But no, so there are circumstances, and to me, those circumstances they do matter. They do matter, and so it does get tough if you get rid of those circumstances. But if you say, okay, we got to keep those mitigating circumstances and all of that, then again, the door is wide open. The door is then wide open for somebody to ultimately just give a sentence to a black man that probably could a little too high. The door is open for that.
Here's the thing, and let's just rip the scab off. Let's have the conversation underneath the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. White people across the board just simply cannot be expected to look at black people with the same love and tenderness that they would look at their fellow white man.
Agreed.
Like, I know it's a nice idea, and that seems to be the ultimate goal, but that's like, it's chasing a waterfall. It's a never-ending story. You're never going to ever get to the point where just the majority of white people actually love and care for black people to a greater degree than black people love and care for their own. Like, that's really what's being asked for, and I think we kind of just need to look that right in the eye and accept the reality of it. Like, no, it's not going to be that. And so even if you now want to take that and look at the law, the simple fact is, if you want to have black people address the law in a meaningful way, they're going to have to do it in their own local districts. They're going to have to set up like in these major black cities and towns. You're going to have to use those places as the model. And if those places are ran horribly, if those are shithole cities, so to speak, then that is what it is too. And you're going to have to just figure it out how to do better. But you can never expect other people to just care about you as much as you want them to. It's not a good way to look at things.
Unfortunately, you're right. Unfortunately. I agree. And yeah. Yeah, and you hit it right on the head when tweaking it locally in major black cities. Somebody pointed out that I think like 60% of the black population is in only like 10 different cities or something like that. I forgot exactly how the math plays out, but yeah, there's a way to deal with it locally, but overall, to ask a 55-year-old white lady on the jury to see Jerome the same way she sees Timmy, who, you know, had a hard life and started hanging with the wrong crowd and did a B&E, broke in someone's house. So little Timmy, he's 19. He just turned 20. He's still a
And Timmy reminds her of her uncle Greg, who he was a little rough and tumble back in the 40s when he was coming up. Like
look at him
this is
now.
human behavior.
And Greg is doing just fine now. And so
Right.
yeah, so she gonna look at Jerome, and they call him J Rock out on the street. That, you know, she gonna look at him differently. So it's like it's hard to get that human element out of it. So yeah, the best thing that can be done is something locally on that. But yeah, but it is a tough one, and even the way it's worded, black men should be arrested and sentenced to no greater degree than any other members of any race who commit the same crime. And this is where it gets doubly weird, or just odd or hard to really explain it, because one, there's obviously no law that says that they're going to be sentenced more, that will be sentenced more. But it happens. Accepting that it happens is like, how do you, other than just drawing a flat line, like I said, and say, if this crime is 2 years, no matter what, this 1 year is no matter what, this crime 10 years, no matter what. Other than doing that, I don't know exactly how you solve that problem, other than asking, like you said, for white people to see black people with the same gleam in the eye that they see little Timmy who made a mistake.
Well, look at it like this. Black Uru strikes down in the chat. He says he left a comment I want to respond to. He says, "Just be better than everyone else, black men, and everything will be fine." And to a certain degree, like, I get the sentiment, but like, that is essentially the nature of the problem. Not in the sense that every individual black man has like some kind of original black sin or something like that, but more to the point of like it or not, you have the whole image problem. Like, the image was born before you got here. Like, the image problem is what it is. And so you're not going to fight the image problem from a legal standpoint. I think that doesn't really get to the heart of the issue. The image problem is something that's going to have to be solved on a more granular level. And I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers about it, but I think that really is the nature of the problem. There is more of an image and perception problem, and that's a lot harder to deal with. And simply using the force of law won't really change how people actually see you.
All right. And I think Black Uru Strike says, you all are reading this out of the context that it was intended or written. I am being very, very careful not to do that. So I don't necessarily appreciate you saying that. I'm being careful not to read it out of the context. We did go off on our own tangent about how do you fix the problem of, you know, varying sentences between one person or the other person, or this group or that group. If it's a majority white jury and a black person who committed the crime, it's like, I'm talking about how do you fix that? You know, that's, so it's not, I'm not reading him out of context. We weren't even criticizing anything that Dr. Tierson Johnson said right there. I mean, Dr. Tierson Johnson will get no criticism from me. You know, that won't happen. I was talking about the system as a whole. This isn't a critique of him. This is, you know, we read through this and we agree with pretty much everything in here. We agree with pretty much everything in here. It's just, you know, when you talk about the complexity of the United States legal system, it's a lot. It's a lot of devil in the details. That's what we were discussing. That's what we are discussing.
Yeah, and I tend to agree on that level. Like they're just strategic discussions I think we're really having here. It's not so much criticizing what Dr. Tierson Johnson is after. It's just I'm looking at the strategy of how do you achieve the goal, and I'm just sort of like brainstorming how things will play out. In my opinion, I don't really like disagree with the body of what he's put forward so far. That's kind of how we start out this conversation anyway. Like whatever little observations I will throw out there, it doesn't change the nature of what he's offering. It's by and large solid work.
All right. The standard RLC in the building says my favorite weekend collab. Hey, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And shout out to my main man, Sir Tice in the building, says salute. First off, props always to Dr. Professor T, but regarding sentencing, he's not telling the full story. I have to also consider, I think it's me, yeah, you have to also consider past criminal history. Well, we're gonna read down. I think we'll see if he touches on see if it touches on that. But I wouldn't say there's no full story is being told. The only thing we read so far was a blanket statement that says Black men should be arrested and sentenced to no greater degree than any other member of any race who commit the same crime. Like that's just a blanket statement. So
well, even look at that right there. Like the wording of that is tricky. You cannot control how often just Black men get arrested. Like just that alone. We're not even talking about the sentencing and all the legalism.
Okay, yeah.
Right. Just simply getting arrested. Like how would you actually go about controlling something like that? Like it's preposterous to even consider the realities of what that means.
It's a difficult one.
It's a tough problem to solve. Like, and this is why I kind of had to shift it a little bit because, like, I don't think this is really like This is why I said the conversation underneath the conversation. Ultimately, we're talking about the image problem. I think we're really talking about something like the image problem, because then other groups of people are not going to look at us with the same sympathetic view that we might look at our own people with, and that's just the way that it is what it is. I don't know how to fix this.
Right. Sir Tice in the building says he's a secret in staying out of. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Here's a secret in staying out of the criminal system. Don't do crime. Real simple.
This is what I'm saying. Like that's back to the arrest numbers now. We're not even talking about how the legal system works. Just how often do Black men come in contact with police on a daily basis across the nation? Like just in one day, the national arrest numbers, like little things like that kind of it adds to the story,
Yeah, hang on for 1 second.
Oh, Rod of God podcast in the chat, he says Hood is being intellectually dishonest now. Explain what do you mean by that? I kind of don't know where you're going with that, but I'm open for criticism. Whatever you got to offer, I want to hear what you got to say on that. But again, I don't know that this is really how we would solve the problem. I mean, to the degree that you can point to actual like racist laws and policies or actual racist people in any individual system, I am all for like pointing them out and changing them. But I think you have to be very targeted in your approach, because when you start messing around with the legal system, you kind of have knock-on effects and unintended consequences and all that. And I don't know that I don't, like I've been saying, I just don't know that we can attack the problem in this way and actually solve the problem. I think what we're really looking at is like the whole image and reputation thing amongst, this is just how we are viewed amongst other races. And like JT Hellstrom in the chat, he says, police ain't black men's biggest problem, it's other black people. Yeah, I tend to think along those lines as well. Because like even honestly now, if you look at the majority of like Black America versus the quote the criminal element, obviously the majority of Black people are not the criminal element. The majority of Black people are not the people out there, making the news every night or doing all the stuff in rap songs or whatever. Like that's not the majority of Black people either. But there's a reality that I couldn't even say reality. There's a perception that is created by this loud minority, and this loud minority, for lots of reasons, have sort of become the image of Black people. But again, I think we're back to this image problem, and it's a long slog up a slippery hill trying to correct the problem. But that's really where I think you have to focus your energies. This is why when I think about how you really solve the problems of Black America in the great grand scheme of things, I kind of look at, you have to get back to the family. You have to have people embracing the older values and the simple values of our grandfathers and great grandfathers and whatnot, because the modern world kind of puts a lot of pressures on the individual just in general. And the only real fight against that is to kind of embrace tradition. And I think it's something that's just more of, it's out of the hands of law to a certain degree. To the extent that you can perfect the legal system, like I'm all for, tweaking things and making them better. But I think there are deeper problems here than just the laws are written in a certain way. There are always going to be bad actors, and then events come out, and you'll learn of tragedies and whatnot. But I don't know if our problem as Black America is completely a legal problem at this point. I think the problems of Black America are a little bit more intimate than legalistic.
Black Uru Strike says, if you change who is targeted for arrest and the crimes that are being enforced, you can radically change the demographics of the criminal justice system. What do you think about that?
How do you do that in an urban area? Like policing the suburbs and the rural farmlands is radically different. And hell, police in the suburban areas are, they get to be a problem as well sometimes too, because there's way less people, and then every now and then you'll get like spikes of urbanized crime. But the problem still becomes like, how do you apply this idea to an urban area where are you gonna not target the places where violent crime happens most often?
Urban crime,
it's tough.
Across the board isn't even half of what it was 25 years ago. Focusing on Black male criminal is dog whistling politics. Well,
No,
okay.
that's unfair because we're literally talking about someone's approach to solving what they claim is like Black men's problem with the legal system. So it's not that we're just picking on Black men, Black criminals for the sake of it. Like, we kind of having a conversation that took us here for a reason. That's a little bit unfair, Uru.
Yeah, I mean, it literally says in Dr. Tiasan Johnson's report, this is his, it is a 14 point, I'm about to botch the wording of it, but the 14-point Black male political agenda. 14-point Black male political agenda. And number 6 on it deals with law enforcement. And number 6A says criminal sentencing reform. And it literally says Black men should be arrested and sentenced to no greater degree than any other members of any race who commit the same crime. So you can't then turn around when we're talking about it and say, you're just dog whistling conservative talking points. Like, no, clearly there's an issue. There's an issue. So it's not just saying it just to say it, if it's making it into the black male political agenda to try to fix the problem. That means that's acknowledging that there is a problem, and the nuance and the devil is in the details. So the problem exists. Like it's undeniable that the problem exists. But moving forward here. Make sure, like I said, make sure that y'all, if you're not subscribed to Dr. T.S.I. Johnson, I should have some moderators dropping a link to his channel in the chat room, and I did drop the link to the 14-point black male political agenda in the chat room. I would like moderators to spam that out. I do want people to go read it for themselves. I do want people to go check it out. I would like for more people in this space to spend more time talking about it. That's why I wanted to spark the conversation here with Hood Conservative. And hopefully people aren't misinterpreting this as we're trying to criticize or ride on Dr. T.S.I. Johnson for the parts we disagree with. No, we agree with the majority of it. So this isn't about that. This isn't that kind of show. I don't even do that kind of thing. So few people.
Hell, no. Look. Even if you think we was criticizing them, now you do a show and you talk about how we was wrong about how we interpreted the thing. But the main point is you got to now talk about it yourself.
Yeah, I mean that's what I would like to foster is just more people talking about this and being fully aware of it. People always say, "Hey, when is y'all going to move things more into politics and getting things done and having a political agenda and blah 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 blah?" And I'm like, okay, well, Dr. T.S.I. Johnson has wrote out a pretty good political agenda for black men specifically. Said it at the beginning that this ain't about black women, it ain't about people of color or poor or disenfranchised. No. Black men. This is what this is for. So yeah, I like that, and I like that. So we're moving forward. Licensing law enforcement. Law enforcement professionals have a revocable license that can be permanently stripped to keep them out of the profession, like lawyers, doctors, etc. Police are protected under the ruling of police protection from incriminating information, or keeping their job can save plenty of black men. Okay. One thing I will say, when I talked to Nathan Daly, who and for my money, I'll say Nathan Daly, he's an ex-cop, got injured on the job. Actually, the video of him getting injured on the job is actually on the internet. He got injured on the job, and he's a retired cop, had to retire due to the injuries. Here's the deal. He's real good. He's real good at he calls it fair down the middle. If the police is on some BS, Nathan Daly will call it out. If Pookie or J Rock or whoever the hell was on some BS and caused the situation, he'll call it pretty fair down the middle. So I like Nathan Daly's police officer analysis of cop videos. I'll give him a shout out on that. When he was on my show, he said something, and I had to kind of take him to task a little bit on this, where he was basically saying the process to get a cop fired is a pretty tedious process. And is set up and directed, department by department. So depending on who's in charge, they could set the rules and put in as many little caveats, variables, and if, ands, and buts to make it to where it's very difficult for a cop to be, reprimanded. It's like they protect each other within the system to where they, to where a cop only gets fired pretty much if it gets caught on tape and there's public outcry. So the public, so basically it's like if they have to fire him to save face, that's when they do it. Other than that, it's like I guess they have a union, and I've worked union jobs, and it's pretty damn hard to get fired from a union job. It's pretty damn hard because it's so many little checks and balances and stuff in place to where you can fight it here, fight it here, and it got to happen. You got the thing that you do wrong. You got to do it wrong 5 times, and then after a year goes by, the thing that you did wrong a year ago, it gets dropped off. So you went from having 4 bad marks on your report to now 3 to now 2, and then now you got wiggle room to fuck up 2 more times and get it back up to 4, and then fly straight for 3 months until the other one drops off. It's like that's how unions keep bad employees working there forever and retire, get to 30 years and retire.
Well, and see, we're talking about government employees.
Hold on, I'm saying all that to say cops kind of got the same thing in place. But go ahead.
No, I was just kind of making that connection. We're talking about government employees, like the same rules that'll keep teachers. You know, this is an infamous story out of New York City. They got what they call like rubber rooms, where teachers who kind of are they're supposed to be bounced out of the system because of whatever crazy infraction they had. They don't get fired in a normal process because they got so much union protection that they basically have to show up for work, punch in into like some office somewhere, and then just be hanging around for 8 hours a day, and they punch out. And then now it's like they can't get fired. So as a teacher, they're going to get paid every day, but they can't get placed anywhere. And it's like that kind of little insanity also applies to the police department. Because I mean, I'm not anti-union, but a lot of times you'll kind of see where like the union has set up a system where if you look at the taxpayer as a customer, the taxpayer is basically getting shitty service at a high fee. And if this was like a business that had to compete for your customers, if you had to compete for your business, you would probably address the problem. But because it's not set up that way, it's about like voting for people and rewriting policy and all that. Like the problem just grows and grows and grows. But now we're still talking about the police here, like with the police unions, because remember they were talking about removing like their licensing and probably what you call like police immunity, qualified immunity, and all that. Like people have been trying to take that away from the police for a while. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I think if you want to try that on some like smaller local levels, like see how that works. But overall, you're still dealing with like this huge government bureaucracy. So even when it comes to the police department, it's still an issue of bureaucracy.
All right. Proxy violence. C on the list. Proxy violence. Recognition of proxy violence is a criminal offense punishable by no less than 50% of the primary offense prison time. What do they mean by that? Proxy violence.
I'm going to get my brother.
I was hoping that's what he meant. I didn't want to jump there. I was hoping now. He back speaking our language now.
A little bit.
Speaking our language now. Them dudes getting sent on the kamikaze mission on those kamikaze the protection. The black woman is most unprotected. Yeah, they got that kamikaze protection. The person who fired a missile probably should get a little bit of time too. But anyway.
Yeah, I like the idea.
D, end qualified immunity. I don't know what that is.
That's what I was just talking about with the police ending qualified immunity, where like, well, it's right here. You can read it.
Okay. Often negotiated into union contracts, qualified immunity is a legal principle that grants government officials, especially law enforcement, performing discretionary functions, immunity from civil suits unless the plaintiff shows that the official violated clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. All right.
Yeah, basically, you can't get sued as a cop if you're doing stuff that is like somebody gets injured as you're conducting normal legal police business. They can't sue you in your personal life. They can only sue the city or whatever.
Okay. Jury nullification. Jury nullification generally occurs when members of a criminal trial jury believe that the defendant is guilty, but choose to acquit the defendant anyway because the jurors consider that the law itself is unjust, that the prosecutor has misapplied the law in the defendant's case, or that the potential punishment for breaking the law is too harsh. Some jurors have also refused to convict due to their own prejudice in favor of the defendant.
I'm not
So
sure why he mentions jury nullification here. I'm not sure if you like, are you for it or
he's
against it? Because
explaining it right here. Jury nullification disproportionately affects Black men. Thus, 30% of the jury should be Black men. More specifically, when an ADOS man has to go before a jury, 30% of the jury must be of his peers, who would be ADOS men. But
this is tough. Like, all right, look, think about the practical realities of that. A population that's 13% of we are 13% of the greater population. So when you're dealing with like urban areas, you might be able to pull out something close to the numbers you're asking for right here. Because even in urban areas, like there are very few cities that are majority Black. There's a handful that are just straight majority Black, but most cities in America are not majority Black. Now, at 30% across the nation, it's hard to have like a nationwide policy. I mean, at 13% across the nation, it's hard to have like some kind of nationwide policy that says 30% of the jury should be Black men. That because now you're messing with like how the jury system works, the voir dire process and all that, selecting your jury members. I don't know how you would actually affect this, like how you would actually pull this off.
yeah. I mean, it'll be difficult to pull off. But it goes back to what we were saying before. Remember how you said that it's hard to get white people to if fixing the problem means getting a white person to see a 20-year-old Black guy the same way she sees a 20-year-old white guy who broke into a house, who she's seeing her son in him, but she's just seeing a nigga that broke into a house in the black guy that did it. It's like, so if that's a problem that we acknowledge and that contributes to the longer sentencing, then one way of fixing that problem is more Black people, particularly Black men, on the jury. But then you're right, and when you say how, Sway, you're not wrong in asking that question. You're not wrong in
Right.
asking that question.
You can pull something off in like heavily urbanized areas, like in certain cities or whatever. But in the majority of like the counties and towns and districts across the country, it's going to be hard to affect that kind of change.
Mm-hmm. F, false accusations. There should be clear and more stringent punishment for filing false charges against Black men. Knowing that Black men are denigrated, stereotyped, and wrongfully convicted more and to greater degrees than others, such accusations can have a more far-reaching detrimental impact on Black men's lives. Black men are the most exonerated group. That's interesting. The most exonerated group due to false accusations, according to the National Registry of Exonerations, Newkirk Center for Science and Society, University of California, Irvine, they state. Interesting.
Generally agree with the whole idea. Like the whole concept of false accusations and whatnot it's a legal area that needs to be addressed. And I think he's going in the right direction with saying you should get half the time that you would have put on somebody or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. African Americans are only 13% of the American population, but the majority of innocent defendants wrongfully convicted of crimes and later exonerated, they constitute 47% of the 1,900 exonerations listed in the National Registry of Exonerations as of October 2016, and the great majority or of more than 1,800 additional innocent defendants who were framed and convicted of crimes in 15 large-scale police scandals and later cleared in group exoneration. So yeah, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Definitely clean that up as best as possible. Definitely clean that up. Wrongfully convicted people. We got all this damn, evidence on top of evidence, cameras everywhere. Anything that happens gets seen some way, somehow. Forensics, DNA. Yeah, it's pretty easy to prove and disprove who did what. I mean, not that the system is perfect, but I think it's enough science on it to where, I mean, that's how people be getting exonerated,
Well, one thing about the exonerations, and I think I don't know if he's really addressed it directly in here, but the same way it's like difficult for cops to get prosecuted and then not even prosecuted, just have them even punished administratively or whatever. Like it's difficult to sort of put any pressure on cops. You can sort of make the same argument when it comes to the legal system. The the prosecutors, the DAs, and the assistant DAs that actually they are the ones who physically mishandle evidence. They suppress evidence. They handle cases poorly. They know that this guy was in a certain place. Like you have evidence that he didn't do it, but you don't want to talk about that. You just go with the case that you have. Like there are real instances of these kinds of things happening, and those people never get addressed either. And that's something that needs to be talked about a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Sir Tice back in here with another one. Says $2 for the Bernie Needs Glasses Fund. Hey, I'm doing good today, man. I'm doing good. I'm holding up quite well. This is a high intensive reading a live stream for me, man. I'm doing all right. Deanie in the building says, about time y'all reviewed this. Thanks. Absolutely. I want more people to do it. I want more people to get into it. I want everybody in the space to have this, at least in their mind from time to time. All right. Where are we? Well, that's just a continuation of what I was reading. Thus, whimsically dangerous charges with questionable, unreliable evidence or no evidence at all should be harshly dealt with to dissuade others from repeating this act against an already vulnerable population. Minimum age of criminal responsibility. The minimum age of criminal responsibility in the U.S. raised to at least 18 years of age. Most states do not have a lower age limit to where a person can be charged, prosecuted, sentenced, etc. for a statutory offense. The states that do specify an age floor mostly range between 7 to 10 years of age. Such legal precedents contribute greatly to the criminalization of Black boys. Some ignorance on this one, but I believe he's referring to, people, around age 10 committing crimes like a kid shoots somebody, they don't get tried as an adult, or do they? They sit in juvie until they're 18, and then they transfer them over to prison. Like, what's the deal?
Well, no, you get transferred into like adult jail once you hit 18 or whatever. But I think what he's really talking about is the concept of being tried as an adult here. Because the minimum age of criminal responsibility in the U.S. raised to at least 18 years of age. Basically, you don't want anyone to be tried as an adult because that specific policy is hitting Black kids a lot harsher. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna break with you on this one. I don't know if I even want to touch that one because this is a tough thing. But there are, little yum yums out here every so often. 10-year-olds who are not just accidental killers. They out there in the life, and how do you solve that kind of problem? Yeah, I don't know if I want to touch the whole. So, some kids are going to have to get tried as an adult. I don't really take big issue with that. All right, well, let's hear it out.
Well, yeah. I can. It's hard to imagine. Like we talking 10 years. We talking 10 years old. 10 years old, got a gun, shot somebody. Try him as an adult. How does that work? That mean he's going to get what, 25 to life? I mean he's going to what? He's going to
It's not just 10-year-olds, it's 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds.
Okay, and then now that's where it gets, that's where it gets shaky. Where I'm like, 16-year-old, come on now, that's his. I that situation, I understand. I understand trying as an adult. I do, I do, I do. But overall, if somebody was to, okay, hold on, like the minimum age of criminal responsibility in the U.S. raised to at least 18 years of age. That basically say you can't get tried as an adult until you're 18. That's basically what's being.
And I guess you would have to really understand the details of what it literally means to to get tried as an adult. I assume there's like I'm not trying to put like teenage gangbangers on death row. I don't know if that's as far as I would want to go with that, but if you're gonna give like some 15-year-old kid like 10 or 15 years, okay, hey, you got 15 years. Like I don't know what to tell you, kid.
Yeah, give a 15-year-old 15 years. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I see why you wanted to punt on this one. I mean, because I don't really want to fight it. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I'm not. You got to be an adult to get tried as an adult. If that's what that's what was being proposed. I'm not gonna fight that one. I'm not. That ain't one that I would fight. But there are some situations where it's like shit. but but yeah.
That's kind of the problem with when you start to argue some of the details of these issues that we're raising, well, that he raises in this document. Like, I don't want to get caught into I don't want to get lulled into the position of arguing the extremes on either side of the argument, right? I don't want to like look at this is an extreme example of what could happen in this situation, and then like make that the reason why I make my decision, but that's kind of the danger here. It's like there's a reality, like I mean, there's an extreme reality, and then there's like the baseline of how things tend to play out on a regular basis. So like when we're talking about something like this, like no, there is a certain kind of reality of like teenage criminality.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Shout out to everybody in the chat room. I see y'all down there. Free Zone Lou says, nah, commit adult crimes, pay adult prices. You know, I can't argue with that, especially if we're talking about 16, 17. And Nick Taylor is right there. He says, at 17, I was being professionally trained at FT, still to shoot and manipulate a myriad of firearms. Yeah, Sir Tice is in agreement with Nick. Deborah Leonelli sarcastically says murder isn't wrong if young boys do it. Laughing face emojis. F out of here. Sir Tice said there was a story of 3 16-year-olds grasp. I think he's trying to say graping someone. You're saying they didn't know what they were doing. Stop it. Right. I mean, I agree with that. I agree with that. I wouldn't. If you look at the look at what it says there. It says 7 to 10 years. I mean, there is a realm when we're talking about a kid, but when you start getting in that 16, 17, even 15-year-old range, that's where it gets shaky. But if somebody wanted to, see, I'm trying not to fight on this one. I'm trying not to fight. I'm trying not to fight. The thing, it says 7. It says, okay, let me pull it up. Let me make sure I can see where I'm saying here. The states that do specify an age floor mostly range between 7 to 10. Okay, so are they saying that above that, you can be tried as an adult? So you can be tried as an adult at 11 or 12?
Yeah, I think that's how that reads. If there's a floor, so yeah, I think that's what he's saying. So after 10 years old, if you get caught in something crazy, you can be tried as an adult. Now, Deanie in the chat, he says something I kind of want to address. He says it's not just about murder. The criminal system is giving boys football numbers for robberies. Like, even at that level, like, I don't know if I could really budge on the whole stand. Like, how do you really, I mean, are we going to not punish teenagers who've done like crazy adult crimes? Are we going to punish them less? Like, I have a tough time going down that road. KG says, lock the parents up. Criminal kids are victims. Nobody wants to hold mama accountable. Like, I don't even know if I like want to go down that road of locking the parents up. That's what I mean. Like, listen, the individual has to ultimately be responsible for the individual. And when we're talking about children, there is a gray area. The younger you go, that's why when you're bringing up like the 10-year-olds doing something, it's kind of moving towards the extreme end of it when we're really talking about like, the teens, 13, 14, and you know how 12-year-olds have been caught up in stuff. So I think when we start to, go far down, it's to the extreme. But still, like, how do you address the fact that people younger than 18, younger than 17 are doing crimes well beyond their years, right? Let's just frame it like that. Like, what do you do for that? Are you gonna like that you only get half the time? Like, you only going to lock them up until they're 18? Like, I don't know how you would actually like adjudicate that in a way that satisfies most parties, satisfies justice, however you want to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, it's coming from a place of empathy for Black boys who will become Black men. They do a lot of wrong stuff, a lot of bad stuff, post age of 10. Let's try to get them the help that they need, as opposed to just locking them up and throwing away the key. That's the empathetic position that this is coming from. So I do understand that, but again, like whenever we're talking about the criminal justice system, it's like so much into the details of what happens. Like, if we start talking like that from a place of empathy, and then you bring up a situation like Sir Tice was talking about, is 3 16-year-olds graping a lady, it's like, hold on, like that empathy goes out the window and something like that. So it's a
There's a
tough
clip
one.
I'll play. I'm sorry. No,
I'm just saying, I understand the empathetic position for Black boys. And somebody was alluding to, they raised by, probably raised by single mothers in the worst environment ever. Fair enough. So I get it. I understand having empathy. Let's see if we can do something to help them before they just get thrown, just locked up and throw away the key. I get it. I have a heart in that sense. But there's some stuff you just can't draw a flat line on. 18, you can't just draw a flat line on it. So that's where I'm at with it.
There's an incident that happened like a year or two ago. I think it was in the DC area. Two teenage girls, and I'm not even sure of the actual ages, but two young girls stole. Maybe it might have been three, but a couple of young girls stole a cab. They called an Uber or something like that and tried to steal the man's Uber. And as they're like trying to drag him out the car, he's fighting back. I guess they managed to get in the driver's seat and speed off. And I kind of use part of this, like at least the sound of it, in a clip in my show sometimes. But basically, they sped off in the car, and he was like hanging out the side of the car, and the car wrecked. He got killed, and the girls basically walked away from the crash. And immediately after it happened, the legal system, I mean, like the mayor or whatever, like a few people involved were just sort of talking about not throwing the full weight of the law on the girls. And I'm like, again, it's I don't like the position of adding too much empathy to the legal system. And I know that there's a whole racial angle of too many Black people getting caught up in this and that, but I don't know if the legal system is supposed to be empathetic. I think the legal system should be about justice. Again, you can have the conversation about what is justice, but I think this is the wrong place to have too much empathy. Empathy should be something on the back end, not on the front end.
Yeah. All right, good stuff right there. Good stuff right there. hang on a second. Give me a second. I'm trying to execute something really quick here, but no, good conversations. Good conversation. I know it's a lot of opinions on this, and I'm trying to talk my way through sending an email. I'll read the next part, and then I'll read the next part past to you, and then I'll send my little email that I got to send. But yeah, that's an interesting one. H, in law enforcement collaboration. Prohibit state and local officers from using federal databases to search for prior what? Prohibit state and local officers from using federal databases to search for prior criminal records when in the process of questioning or apprehending a black male officers more often than not decide their level of aggression based on one's alleged prior history. There is legislative precedent for such a law already in California, has adopted it under designation SB 5-4 to protect illegal immigrants.
Yeah, that's a hard no for me. That's an extra hard double no.
I'm sorry. I was waiting to laugh because I knew you was going to say that.
Yeah, no, this is not how you run proper law enforcement. I can't imagine. And then the fact that we're talking about California and illegal immigrants, like I don't want to copy the laws that help the illegal immigrants get a foothold in any part of the country. That's not going to work for me.
Yeah. Okay. I knew he was gonna get a hard no on that one. I knew he's gonna get a hard no on that one. GC, check your email. All right. Moving along. All right. Now I think this is one where we're all going to be probably more agreeable going forward with this one. That's intimate partner violence / homicide police reform. Absolutely. And like I've been doing more or less all show, been acknowledging Dr. Tiasan Johnson and more or less what he's contributed to this space. And the data that I show that I can't find right now, I always show this data right here. I only saw this because it was on Dr. Tiasan Johnson's show, and I saw it, and I always bring it up whenever we talk about domestic violence or anything happening. I always bring up the data that shows that women are more violent than men in domestic relationships, and I always shout out Dr. Tiasan Johnson for that because I saw it on his channel. He was the first one covering and studying this, so I give him props on that. So we were moving to the portion of the 14-point Black male political agenda laid out by him on his website, and we are part of intimate partner violence / homicide police reform. But before we actually get all the way into that, game changer, you heard something down there that made you request the link. What's on your mind? And he's muted.
Yes, I did, and I won't be very long. I know that this is more of a one-on-one, but wanted to share something.
Feel free to. Okay. No, feel free to hang out if you want to. Feel free. We 2.5 hours in. This shit is taking longer than I thought. But so feel free to hang out if you want to. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I wanted to share this with you when you're talking about juvenile violence and get you guys' take on it. So it's there we go.
This gun is about to fire off by it without. I never saw this. I just knew that she was about to fire that thing off.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't be a video.
I've seen so much worse. I would never tell you to play this on your show because it's actual like a killing on camera. But there was a young Black girl and boy And the video very much like this, and the girl was waving around like a pistol. I think she had extended grip or like some kind of drum barrel at the bottom of it. And she's waving the gun around. And you know how little kids would be fronting with the camera like they're in a rap video or something, and they're just waving the gun, doing her little stupid thing. And then, bow, shot the boy right in the back of the head, right in front of her. And then as she panics and drops the gun, she fucking shoots herself. Right on camera.
Damn.
Wow.
So like kids are doing things way ahead of their years. That was kind of the whole point I was sort of making when we were talking about that stuff. Like, I mean, how do you really address that? It has to be addressed at some level. Like these types of things do happen.
Yeah. Well, other than the chick almost blowing on, I mean, she gave herself a haircut. I don't know. That bullet just barely missed her scalp. Looked like she, trimmed her hair right there. Other than just the lunacy of that actually happening, what point were you trying to make there, GC?
The mentality. She don't fear consequences from her parents or anything like that. She don't fear any consequences. That's why she recorded it. And even if she, even afterwards, she dropped the gun and it was like a toddler around, these kids don't fear consequences from the parents. And when we talk about like trying children as adults and things like that, I could see some of it here because they're not fearing their parents. They don't. Sometimes their parents is, 14 years older than them and stupid. And yeah, I think that the law perhaps need to put some fear and make an example out of a few kids.
One would argue, how many more examples do Black people, or in this case, Black men, need of the law making an example?
No, well, she's not a Black man or a Black kid. And maybe there are fewer videos like this on Black young men and boys, because of that, because they have been made examples of. But she's probably like, oh, nothing's going to happen to me because I'm light-skinned and I'm not a Black man. But for whatever reason, she felt perfectly comfortable doing something that's illegal like this to where her parents and law enforcement can see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Denny is, who was that? He said, yeah, I was trying to read somebody comment, but she almost committed suicide. Let's go. I'm trying to find it. Never mind. I can't find it. All right. Let's get into the intimate partner violence portion of this thing. Despite stereotypes that intimate partner violence / homicide aggression is solely purview of Black males, it is nigh equal bidirectional in the Black community, meaning men assault women to the same degree women assault men, and the numbers of interracial intimate partner violence homicide amongst the 40 million Black population is negligible, with data suggesting that women across race initiate violence first while opting to use weapons more often than men. Abolish the Duluth model. The Duluth model is the most common better intervention program used in the United States. Critics argue that the method can be ineffective as it was developed without minority communities in mind and can fail to address root psychological or emotional causes of abuse, in addition to completely neglecting male victims and female perpetrators of abuse. I think we all agree getting rid of the Duluth model is a necessary thing. We agree?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, of course. Like I said, this should have been this should have never happened because it's based on a lie anyway. Like when we look at the numbers that you just put up in that chart, how do you compare that to the Duluth model? Like somebody's lying here.
Yeah. More than ignoring male victims, the Duluth model proposes that men were de facto guilty of being the primary abuser of women whenever a woman experienced some form of intimate partner violence. It ignored women's greater capacity to initiate violence and or be aggressors of intimate partner violence. B, intimate partner violence. What else? Shit. Okay, carceral practice. I think I said that right. Black men incarcerated for intimate partner violence require a massive reevaluation of their status in relationship to their victimization at the hands of women, as rates of bidirectional abuse in the Black community suggest equal violence initiated by women to men and from men to women, and the hypo sentencing of women for the same crime as men by up to 63%. The underrepresentation of female aggressors suggests a massive bias in sentencing that disproportionately targets and criminalizes men. I'm pretty sure we all agree with that. Now to get into C, sexual assault / rape acknowledgement includes legally recognizing the withholding of sex as a form of sexual abuse in marriage. I'm gonna read that again. Includes let me get through it. Includes legally recognizing the withholding of sex as a form of sexual abuse in marriage. That said, such an acknowledgement might allow for less punitive access to annulments and divorce options. Also requires that all rape allegations require traditional standards of adequate evidence prior to arrest and sentencing.
Now, listen, I know it sounds like a lot, but hear me out on this, right? They be lying too much anyway, so you gotta go this far. I support this. This is actually, it sounds like a lot, but I support this.
I approve that. I approve this message. That oh man, includes legally recognizing the withholding of sex as a form of sexual abuse in a marriage. Think about it.
Well, does that make you a sexual assault survivor now? Like your wife won't, your wife won't fuck you. Does that mean you're now a survivor of sexual assault? Like there's sexual abuse, right? So, I mean, I'm with it. Like I mean, I just, I'm having a hard time getting used to the language, but in theory, I'm okay with it.
But think about it. Think about it. Depending on how everything is drawn up, there's no fault divorce that makes a lot of things makes it to where a lot of things don't matter. But think about it. If she's able to, get the divorce, let's just say if it's in a state where there's not no fault divorce, but she's able to to validly get the divorce and get more money and everything from him if he cheats. However, she withheld sex for 5 years. You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going with this?
That's exactly why I'm with it.
Withheld sex for 5 years. He finally gets some pussy from somewhere. Now she got good grounds to divorce him and take his shit. So yeah, that withholding of sex, yes, it should make some shit null and void, or make it to where that she stripped her power, or let's just call it sexual abuse. I wouldn't have went all the way there, but I'm with it.
No. This is why the language is important. So we reclassified financial abortions as terminating parental obligation. We have to reclassify this as well. This is marital abuse. You abused me maritally, all right? That's what we're going to call this. This is withholding sex is now marital abuse, and marital abuse should kind of be seen in the man's favor if we're going to discuss like his infidelity. Like, of course he cheated on you. You wouldn't give him none. He is legally obligated to fuck other women. Like, it's right here in the law. You can't just maritally abuse a man and he don't get none outside the marriage. That's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah. We can go with this. It's funny.
Well,
go ahead.
No, I want to play devil's advocate for a second, because whenever introducing a new law or principle or anything like that, and this is what we haven't did in the past, that's why we have like a welfare system and things like that exist, and it's easily fraudable. I always ask myself, how could a bitch break this? And with this, I can see a bitch breaking this simply by saying, I want sex 80 times a week, and he's not giving it to me. Therefore, everything I do is null and void, So, or he sexually abused me. You see where I'm going with this? Now, I know that it seems far-fetched now, but once again, we got to ask ourselves, how can a bitch break it? How can a bitch break this? How can she take something that's legal protection for something, or legally meant to be good for all, like welfare, and break that system to something corrupt? I could see that happening in that way.
The devil's in the details. I think it would be an issue of like wording, and then you have to throw in little caveats like reasonable amount. So demanding sex 80 times a month is probably unreasonable from a physical standpoint. So I think you'd have to sort of make legal allowances for language like that, and that's where you can kind of now you can get it, but you can at least get it in front of a judge. And ultimately, it's not going to be perfect for either side, but I think you can have something approaching fairness where now there's going to be at least a baseline understanding. Like, look, you got to have sex with them. You got to give them one good bang at least every week. At least, on Sunday night, if you went from Sunday to Sunday and you haven't thrown it at them real hard one time, you're now in dangerous legal territory. All right, men and women, you got to plow it to her at least one good time between Sunday to Sunday, or you're in dangerous legal territory. I think that's something both men and women could respect from a legal standpoint, but it has to be something that both parties see as relatively reasonable, or at least the judge can have some kind of boundaries of what relatively reasonable is.
And Jackie said it best. What's reasonable? Whenever something becomes immeasurable, that is the gray area that they thrive in. I'm telling you, how can a bitch break it? She can say like, what's reasonable or something like that, and move from there. But
listen, one enthusiastic blowjob a week.
And what's enthusiastic? Like, I'm telling you, they are going to they're going to break it. They're going to say, "Oh no, we had sex last week," even though you got a pump and a half and you didn't even get a swirl. Like, I'm telling you, they will break it.
I just like the idea if she's closing in on a week, like she's about to make a full 7 days. Last time was on Sunday, and it's Sunday again, and it's approaching midnight, and you just being able to just stand at the foot of the bed and point at her and say, "You're in dangerous legal territory right now." I just love to be able to do that.
That would be nice. I can see that working, but they always break the system, Bernard. I'm telling you, they always break the system.
You don't make it a threat like, "Oh, you're in dangerous legal territory." Like, bro, this is your woman. You're supposed to love her. Listen, it's time to save the marriage, babe. That's how you got to kick it to the bed. Babe, listen, it's time to save the relationship.
I like what Deanie said. It's time to clock in.
Right. Don't make it punishment. You got to make it fun.
No, I definitely agree. I was just playing devil's advocate, but I do like to look at how can they break that particular system, and they can classify the base things as sex, like oh, he touched my tit, that counts, or something like that. I just look at it like that sometimes.
Lance Brown in the building with a $5 super chat. Do appreciate that. He says, "How would that affect a truck driver or a military member?" I'm pretty sure I think that's easily work outable. And hell, if they're not in the same damn state or country, then they can't do it. If they're in the same state or country, then goddamn it, the duties are she can end up in dangerous legal territory.
Now, I would like to make a proposal, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
your ex-wife still has to fuck you.
Oh yeah, we talked about that earlier when the women
Oh,
go
okay.
in the courtroom and they say, no, they're trying to get alimony and stuff, and then I'm accustomed to this, and I'm accustomed to that, and I'm accustomed to this. Like that's literally the language that they like. That's illegal language, a life that she was accustomed to. Like that's So yeah, Chris Rock made a joke about that. I was like, I was accustomed to fucking her twice a week. So so yeah, he's like, I want pussy payments throughout
No,
going
we'll
forward.
call it vagimony.
Yeah, or pussimony. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, shout out to Lance Brown. Do appreciate you coming through with the super chat. Appreciate everybody who's supporting the stream. Who else? What else we got? Let me get on through this. All right. Health targeted cancer campaign, treatment and recognition. Health targeted cancer campaigning and treatment recognition. Black men are diagnosed with cancer at slightly less rates than white men and white women, but die from it more than white men and white women. Oh, and black women, especially in Arkansas, Alabama, Connecticut, DC, Georgia, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, South Carolina, Tennessee, and especially in Wisconsin. The scales for measuring black male cancer is 3 times larger per 100K. Only thing I'll say about that is that there's differences. See, I don't even want to get too deep into this. There are some. Okay, there says that there's the element of black people being unhealthy. Like we know that, we get that, we understand that. Then there are. I don't know if it's as much of a problem as people say, but there are some differences in the races. Like if a doctor doesn't consider race before operating on certain people, or then he can, it might as well, it could be malpractice, if you don't. So there's differences. So there is something to be said about our unique setup, where most of the procedures and tests and everything that they run is basically based off and predicated on white people. So something does need to be in place to have our more specific more specific doctoring, so to speak. I get that.
There are multiple types of cancer, right? And I don't know like how that would break down amongst all the variations of cancer, but it just sort of raises a question like, what's giving black men cancer? Like, what do black men share in common that perhaps white men and women don't share in common? And I'm just curious, like, what could black men be engaging in such a mass level that it's raising our cancer rate that white men and women are not engaging with at the same level?
Sex with fat women.
I don't know. Is it fat women? Is it black women? Like I'm seeing the connection. Is it fat black women?
Yeah, it's fat black women basically. Whenever you deal primarily and largely with fat black women, you start to eat the crap that they eat, and then as a result, you start developing shit that you shouldn't develop as a result of that. Yes, constant dealings, and and prostate cancer. Do you know what fucking a fat bitch does to your prostate?
No,
I don't either, but I bet you got cancer in it. Like, so don't do that shit. Stay away from it. Whenever you ask, what do black men do different than other races of men? It's always fuck fat women. And the results show. I don't have cancer. Protect yourselves.
All right. Fair enough. We can
feel
move
like
on.
we just solved the mystery.
Yeah.
Targeted small business support. Okay. Commensurate with our status in society and taking into account the lack of capital and inherent wealth, black male-owned business should be targeted, particularly during COVID, for support. Thoughts on that one?
I don't have an objection. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're not. It's just not about just what do we object to in this thing? No, I mean, it's just with,
Oh no, I mean, I agree with that.
yeah. Starting out, I mean, the first part of it. I mean, we made it probably to number 6, I think it was, before it was any kind of slight disagreement. I mean, we generally agree with the majority of what's in here. It's just some things that it's a lot of nuance and devil in the details in the question of how Sway comes up with some of the things on the list. But for the most part, everything is agreed with, unless you just want to be a Nazi. But a lot of it is agreed with, and I'm divided on that, because I do. I mean, like me and Hood Server, we talked about this earlier in the show, how okay, there was a part when they was talking about affirmative action and giving black men like a double minority status, and it's okay. Will this help black men get more jobs? Then yes, I want black men to get more jobs. But do I want black men to be, treated, lumped in, thrown in with the women? It's like, it's like, so that's why, when he said just scrap the whole thing and let everybody, go and compete. Yeah, I agree with them. That fits my sensibilities more. But then there's a matter of being pragmatic and say, well, wait a minute, what will get the best result? What will help black men the most? So that's really the thing. A lot of the times, that's where I ended up divided on certain things. So, but overall, I do, when it comes to something like this, if this is going to be presented to a politician or politicians, and some of this, let's just say 80% of this is going to be put forth. At that point, my scale is not what I think, how I feel about it, what my personal sensibilities are. It's like, will it help black men and boys, or will it not? That's where I'm at. I'll let that be my compass before anything, if this is going to be in the hands of a said politician. Because I mean, there was a lot of good stuff. It was a lot of good stuff in here. The link to it, I'll re-put the link to it in the chat room, because I know some people just made it in here, and us reading it and giving our commentary on it shouldn't be your only relationship with it. You should actually read it for yourself, and I encourage other content creators to talk about it. But that's the link to it right there. I think everybody in this space should just be knowledgeable and aware of this. Dr. Tia Johnson took time to write out a 14-point black male political agenda, and a lot of it is really good and really detailed, particularly the family court aspect of it, where a lot of things were brought up that I never even thought of. So it was pretty damn good.
I want to actually say I'm not really interested in picking apart number 9. Like, I don't really take much issue with that. But I'm looking at number 10, and I'm curious as to how we could use that. That seems a lot more interesting to me.
Okay.
When it says accrued Social Security and life insurance family support, accrued Social Security and life insurance from deceased black males should be partly applied to children and grandchildren when applicable. I've never really heard that idea before. I'm curious as to how you implement that, though. That sounds interesting, though.
Yeah, I like that. And I talk, whenever people start talking about generational wealth, I always say it's generational. Like, nigga, start with you and get to work. That's my mentality with this. But some of it, a big part of it, you don't got to do that much work. You just got to live and fucking die, and then cash out a $500,000 insurance policy, and boom, some generational wealth just got passed down to your kids. So it's accrued Social Security and life insurance from deceased black males should be partly applied to children and grandchildren when applicable. Yeah, I don't know exactly how you do that. Again, there's that how Sway question that I keep asking, but I guess I don't necessarily need to know all the how. I mean, if somebody knows how it's possible, then goddamn it, do it. But I'll say yes, that makes sense. But see, here's the thing. I mean, well, okay, accrued Social Security, I don't know exactly how that works, but life insurance, you definitely can set up your beneficiary, so you should be setting that to your damn children. Don't just let the ex-wife. Never mind. It should be set to your children. So yeah. I mean, I'm with that. I always say generational wealth, life insurance policy, buy a house, pay it off, and then in your retirement, you know, all of that can easily add up to over $1 million that you could pass down easily, and everybody can do that. Everybody can do that. So that's why I scoff a lot. I mean, you know, if you dig back into the history and everything that was taken, and I get it, I get it. But right here and now, we don't got a silver DeLorean, a time machine. We can't go back with Doc Brown and change nothing. So right here, right now, what can be done? Yes, you can set things up. You can set things up to where you could die and pass down, you know, technically, you know, around $1 million in net worth to your kids. You can. But okay.
I definitely agree that that's how it should be done. Considering that the way it's done now is that it goes automatically to the spouse. And because we have so many incorrect households in the sense that, you know, the spouse is not the mother of your kids, you know, okay. So say you're one of these
Good
guys.
point.
So yeah, you're one of these guys who marry single mothers and you also have kids. And something happens to you because men tend to die earlier than women, as well as men tend to marry younger than themselves. So you die, it goes to her, and then it goes to her kids when she dies, and your kids, your natural biological seeds, your legacy gets nothing.
Bingo.
And yeah, and that's how the laws are set up now.
Yeah, and that's how you end up seeing death at a funeral, because it'd be a lot of situations like that where that new wife then got all their inheritance.
Right.
They got all their legacy. And if her ass is old and half dead, and then some kids that, especially if they got married later in life when those kids was practically grown, some kids that ain't even been in his life is going to inherit his legacy that he left to his new wife, then died after 7 years. And then, yeah, there's some kids, some damn kids that the family don't even know is walking around with their inheritance. Yeah, that's how, yeah, people be getting killed over shit like that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, you know, they marry the guy last minute, and you know, and then he's gone. And yeah, like Lori Harvey would come up if Steve Harvey don't have a will, and you know he's gone right now, or at least her mother would, and then you know, then eventually she would. But his natural born kids probably won't get anything at all.
Yeah,
and that sucks.
Yeah.
And this is kind of why I say, like, a lot of the problems that we're talking about as like the problems of Black America, I don't know that you can legislate your way out of this completely. You know, maybe the law can nudge people in the proper direction, and I can use it in that way. But on a grander scale, like, I think we're dealing with issues that sort of supersede the law. Like, you know, as they say, politics is downstream from culture. And so we're talking about cultural problems, and, you know, people hate to look at it that way, but it really is. This is a cultural issue where the family dynamics that are common to like Black men and Black women as they hit the later end of their lives, you know, because you're talking about like Steve Harvey and his wife. So that's a certain generation that he's at a certain point in his life now. And the family structure that he could have otherwise been devoting all of his life's energies into is kind of like it's flipped in the air. Everything's, you know, they flipped the table over essentially, and so the energy is now going to be spread out amongst children who aren't necessarily his first children from his original marriage. So there's the whole question of lineage and splitting up the pie and all that stuff. And then two, even deeper than that, when you start to have the problem, well, not the problem, when you start to have the situation of different mixed families. So a man has you know, I got a couple of kids over here and a couple of kids over there, and I got a baby over here. And none of those brothers and sisters are truly brothers and sisters.
True.
Not from a relationship aspect, from, you know, just growing up together, going places, riding in the back of the car as you go back and forth to wherever. Like the whole the actual fibers of what it means to be siblings growing up together. You don't get that as freely as you would if your kids are all raised together. It's part of the reason why, like that, that very idea was motivating me. Like, shit, I do not want to have multiple baby mamas and my kids be all over the place. I gotta travel across town and back and forth just to see all of my kids on the same day. Like that whole idea, there's a practical reality to that there's a financial cost, basically, is where I'm going. There's a huge financial cost to that whole way of living.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And there's financial and there's other beneficiaries to that way of living, which is why it's so prevalent in the Black community. And I know this is going to be a little bit off topic, but if you the two of you would bear with me for a second. Those situations benefit the women more than anything. And that is because she is the center of everyone. If you get with a woman who already has kids, her kids are closely related to her, and you're closely related to her, and you're not closely related to her kids. So she is the center. She's the linchpin in every single interaction. The only time okay, so I'm gonna throw this out there. I'm gonna put this out there because I think a lot of people think it, but it needs to be said. Women often get jealous of the attention that a man gives his children. So to avoid that, the stepdaddy situation, they don't have that problem. He will never put her kids over her because they're not his kids. So a lot of women gravitate towards the stepdaddy situation for that and many other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that too. Like, do you think the stepdaddies, like, one of the motivations to be a stepdaddy is that you just get to be like father light. You don't have to be a real father, but you just sort of get a taste of the fatherhood without any of the long-term commitments of the fatherhood.
No, you get all the crap. You get all the crap of fatherhood and none of the goodies. So, for example, your kid grows up and wins the Nobel Prize, and don't mention your ass. Your daughter grows up and she marries Michael B. Jordan or some crap like that, and you don't walk her down the aisle. See, these are benefits of fatherhood that you don't get, but you get that bill come Christmas time.
I think we just saw that with a number one pick in the NBA draft, who I think he thanked everybody but the stepdaddy that raised him.
And probably sent them to basketball camp and, bought him the shoes that he needed to dunk. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you get all the crap and none of the major benefits of fatherhood, not even the passing of your name.
Yeah. Perfect Blackness says, I really wish people would go to Dr. Tiasan Johnson's channel. Yes, I've been emboldening people to do that themselves. And I've been dropping the link to this in the chat room so people can check it out and read it for themselves. Go to his website and also go to his channel. Perfect Blackness goes on to say that he explains each of these points in great details. The problem that I have is that some of the Black manosphere don't empathize with Black males completely. I addressed that and touched on that earlier in the show that is a factor in the equation. Some of the stuff it does take a degree of empathy, and we sometimes can be just too red pill and straightforward for our own good to where we don't have empathy in certain situations. So I did speak on that. But so yeah, I'm not going to negate your point at all. It's a fair point, well taken. There's a time and place for empathy in some situations, definitely.
Well, I want to address something in the chat room, if I may.
Go ahead.
As empathetic as I can. I know someone, and this is to David. I know someone who did that. What happens in that case is that if she divorces you, you have to pay child support. So for people that don't know, David was saying that he adopted his stepkids. that doesn't necessarily endear them more to you unless they were very young and you're the only father that they know. However, what it does is it makes you liable for child support if ever you were to get divorced. Before that, you wouldn't have to pay child support. People don't pay child support on stepchildren, but they do pay child support on adopted children. I've seen it happen, and it is not fun. You are, because really, like the stepdaddy situation is you are taking care of somebody else's kids in exchange for a wife. As a stepdaddy who adopted the kids might find himself in a situation where you're taking care of someone else's kids in exchange for nothing.
Yeah, I never even thought about that.
And that's because, if I may interrupt for a second, the reason why you haven't thought about it, because we as Black men, we have to think, how can a bitch break this system? How can a bitch break it? Yes, this is something that is supposed to be good for the children. How can a bitch break it? And they always break it.
I never thought about that with that adoption thing. Is that if you sign up to do the stepdaddy dance, the stepdaddy bailout plan, once you go that route and adopt the kids, you basically gave her, she got you by the balls. You gave her incentive to leave and take with the kids that you just adopted.
And not for nothing, I'm really even questioning why you would go that route, because it's
There's
like
no
you
reason.
already married her. Like you're already locked in for the majority of whatever's gonna, marriage is pretty much the goal anyway. So like you adopting the kid, I mean, unless she was like on her deathbed and you needed to take over legal responsibility, that's like the one little caveat where it's like, all right, you're officially assuming stewardship over these children. Fine, I get that, but it's like, love kills you, bro. Love kills us all in the end. The things you do for love.
BitKev9539, and I see your super chat, Deanie. I just scrolled up and caught it. Incentives influence behavior. Simple as that. Want better families? You have to incentivize that. You can't alpha your way through it all the time. Absolutely. And, going back to the beginning of this, when he's talking about reforming the family court, that was actually the first point in the 14-point Black male political agenda. That one, it was basically about de-incentivizing all of their things that they can abuse and incentivizing men. It was like that. It was that part was definitely excellent. And you could just read down that and you could just see like, oh, well, of course we have a low marital rate and high single mother rate. Just when you could just see everything that needed to be addressed in there. And so yeah, no, absolutely. But Deanie in the building says, Bernard, will this stream be kept up? Thanks again. I hope this starts a trend. I hope it starts a trend too. I do want more people to give this a look. But yeah, more than likely this will be kept up. I know I went on a period where I was taking everything down and then I strayed away from it. So this probably will stay up, as most of the live streams have been staying up lately. I take more live streams down when I'm doing more pre-recorded stuff, but I haven't been doing pre-recorded stuff. So I've been leaving the live streams up just so, the channel could have new content on it, so there's that. I'll probably start back taking streams down when I start back doing more pre-recorded. But all right, damn it, we 3 hours into this bad boy. Well, we almost towards the end of it. Paternity leave, federally mandated, nationally imposed parental leave for fathers on a state, private, and federal level, and applied nationally across the board. As black men have been designated the most participatory father across race in a recent study articulated by Josh Lewis in his text, All In: How Our Work First Culture Fails Dads, Families, and Businesses, and How Can We Fix It Together? Their lack of access to parental leave is unjust. Okay, that's an interesting one. Fathers getting more parental leave because fathers are more fathers are more in the home taking care of the kids. That's one that I that hadn't thought too much about, but I guess some of the ones down towards the end is not really the hot button high priority issues that we talk about a lot in the space, but those were definitely addressed in the earlier part of it. But that's one that I'm good. I like that. I like that. Hadn't thought too much about it, but no problems there at all. Reverse voter disenfranchisement. Let's see. Allow Black male ex-convicts to have their voting rights restored upon release from incarceration. For context, review the origins of the voter disenfranchisement for convicts. Just real quick, y'all are good with how do y'all feel about or think about ex-cons being able to vote?
Nah.
You say no?
Nah.
I don't think it should be like a blanket return of your rights. I think there should be like a path to getting your rights back.
What kind
And
of
maybe
path?
well, I was just going to say each state would probably have to handle that, so it would be slightly different everywhere you go, but there should be some kind of legal statute that you have to clear. Like, let's say if you did some time or whatever, you get out of jail, you have to have like X amount of years, no legal infractions whatsoever. So there has to be some kind of like measure of like you're clean. You've been walking the straight and narrow. And so I think ultimately I'm not saying that you should just blanket grant criminals or felons, ex-convicts, the right to vote just, across the board. But I do like the idea of returning your rights after some kind of process, some kind of time period has been completed.
I could go with that. I could go with
Well,
conservative on that.
okay, well, let's walk down this path then. Some 18-year-old dumbass bimbo chick, I think her knowledge of who she ought to vote for is just as useless as a guy who just got fresh out of prison. But she has right to vote. Nobody's trying to take her vote away because she's dumb and got purple hair. Like, so in that case,
I actually am. I say repeal the 19th, but let's solve that problem.
I know you have a solution for that problem too, but overall, she's free to vote. So again, why we being hard asses on some guy who's 30 who just got out of prison? I trust his vote. He was in prison. He read more books in prison than what y'all last read outside of prison. I trust his vote, not over y'all vote, but over the purple hair 19-year-old white girl vote.
Okay, I just want to say once again that if she's pretty, I'd fuck her. So, and that's a shot at SKC. That was just ridiculous, brother. But as far as that, she didn't show a history of making bad decisions. Also, you would have people that break the law initiate the law. They are working to create the laws to their favor. Does that make sense?
You said the person who broke the law is trying to initiate the law or work to create the laws to their favor. You're talking about with their vote?
Okay, so say somebody goes to jail for drunk driving, right? Something small. They had a series of DUIs, and then somebody puts on the ballot that you should be legally allowed to drive while drunk. So what do you think they're going to vote?
Well, that wouldn't be on a damn ballot to be able to drive and drunk legally. But
there was a time when people, drove drunk. There was a time where here marijuana was illegal. So yeah, people do vote in things that are in their cultural individual best interests.
Well, do y'all support only property owners to be able to vote?
Probably not to that extreme. I do feel that young men should be allowed to vote. And most young men are not property owners. I get why in a developing agricultural sense that that was important, but I don't think that that's necessary now, especially since
No,
it's
I
a lot
think
harder for people to become property owners.
I
The
think you
reason
can split the hair.
real quick, Hood. The reason I asked that question because if we're going to start talking about who should and who shouldn't be able to vote, we're running into some, I think, bad territory. If that who should and who should not be able to vote is based on criterias of things that more a situation or problem that more black men have. I'm not going to say that black men are disproportionately affected by it, because no, I mean, hell, they ass broke the law. They got a record because they broke the law. So I'm not going to even speak that Democrat language on that shit. So, but either way it go, if we're playing the game of excluding who should and who should not be able to vote, if the person who's being excluded, if the criteria of exclusion is based on something that we know black men have done more, then it's like we're just lowering a black male voting base. But then if we try to find other criterias of excluding, and then we don't exclude, then we're just increasing everybody else's voting base.
I get where you're coming from, Bernard. However, I don't want to associate just because they're black that they have similar interests as I, especially if they are, you know,
because they're getting their booties to the poll and shit. Like, so yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying.
Exactly.
They're voting with black women. So yeah, so they're just because they're black and they're male don't mean that they're voting to our ideals. I understand that.
Right, exactly. In fact, they probably are voting against our ideals. So, you know, it's yeah, I probably wouldn't go that route. But I do agree with what Hood Conservative said, that after, you know, probably if they spent as many years out as they spent in, then yeah, I don't, you know. So like if you do a year, then you have to wait a year. And if that wasn't an election year, then you get to vote anyway, because you probably did something small if you only did a year. However,
25 years and got out at 60, your ass can't vote until you're 85.
Yeah, but I mean what did you do to get 20? But what did you do to get 25 years? And you know, okay, so say, like, you know, you're that dude. I'm not gonna say the R word, but I am going to say, or I'm not gonna say the R person, I should say. But you like them young, and then somebody says, okay, let's change the age of consent. What are they gonna vote? Like, I mean, it's stuff like that. It's a
I feel like
slope.
that's literally what's happening. I feel like that's not Phil, but I'm pretty sure that's how we've gotten to this point with like the gender stuff and all that. How they changed the definitions in the DSM. Well, it's like, well, you let the crazy guy write the definition of what's crazy, and all of a sudden, all these things are no longer considered crazy. Funny how that works. But it's the same kind of argument with the voting thing. The one thing I would say about, because you mentioned only landowners should vote. And I wanted to throw this caveat out there, and this could actually apply to women just as well. So that way, you know, I'm not 1,000% sexist, just a little tiny bit misogynistic. But if you're gonna do selective service like the draft shouldn't be mandatory in the sense that, like, when I graduated high school, I was told that you had to sign this document, or you know, some people might come after you one day. So the draft basically is mandatory in the sense that all men have to sign up for selective service at 18. I don't know that women have to sign up for that, but if you reduce the mandatory nature of it and put this caveat on it where all men who've actually signed up for the draft get to vote. That way you don't just restrict it to purely landowners, but you still have that you know, service guarantee citizenship sort of thing. And then honestly, women can sign up for the draft just as well, and boom, you want to vote? All right, you got to put some skin in the game.
Yeah, I like a skin in the game type of right to vote. I do like that. I don't know exactly where I would put it, you know, where the skin needs to be placed, or what type of skin need to get put in the game. But I do like that. That's why I use the 18-year-old bimbo that don't know shit, that who's a voter. You know, that's why I use that as an example. But But
Well,
yeah,
I don't know. Women don't. Yeah, women. Their value in the military is far less than men. It's ridiculously less than men, and in my opinion, they really shouldn't be there. They're getting in the way. So they signing up for the draft should not earn them the same benefits that a man signing up for the draft does. Because their value to the military is far, far less.
right.
Okay.
Rod of God podcast in the building says the litmus test to restoring voting rights to convicts, will they vote for Democrat candidates? If yes, then no. If no, then yes. LOL, but kind of serious. Right on. I hear you. I hear you. All right, let's roll it some more. Let's roll it some more. Mad scientist. I like that name. Mad scientist. All right. We are on number 12. I didn't even read that all the way, but the historical context for this come from Old English. Common law was justified the concept of civil death as punishment for conviction or treason or a felony because a person committing a crime had corrupt blood, making the person dead in the law. America did not immediately adopt a position because of the Constitution was silent on voting rights. It neither granted nor denied anyone the right to vote. In 1787, the Constitution considered Black people as 3/5 of the human being. Blacks voting was not an issue. Then the Civil War, and then came the Civil War and the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, enslaving people except as punishment for a crime was illegal. Birthright U.S. citizenship was established explicitly, including freed enslaved people. Black men got the right to vote. Over 2,000 Black men were elected to government offices, and they began purchasing or homesteading property and voting. America responded. The exception in the 13th Amendment allowing slavery as, oh my goodness, we going deep diving into the history. Okay. I'm gonna. This is gonna be the first part of it. I'll skip, but it was doing some history lesson in historical context. That term that Alan we like to use. Keeps giving the historical context behind Black people voting or not being able to vote, and so there's that. But going on to number 13, Black male specific reparations for the transatlantic slave trade through 21st century hyper reincarceration. All right. Be nice.
Ooh, you saved the controversial stuff for last. I see.
Be nice, gentlemen. We respect Dr. Tia-san
Well,
Johnson. I know. I already
no,
know.
I want to read a little further to see just how he fleshes this out. He says, reparations is a crucially overlooked area that has required redress since the late 19th century. Due to the United States' treatment of Black men specifically, practices deemed legal dramatically targeted and impacted Black male life in a manner distinct from the rest of Black America altogether. See Jim Sedanius' work on social dominance theory for more details on outgroup male treatment. Ooh. I'm generally against the concept of reparations. Like, I'm not, I don't think it was ever going to happen. I think it's the ultimate carrot on a stick. And then two, like on a practical level, like, I mean, it's not something that people should expect. Like, it's a miracle enough that you used to be a slave and you ain't a slave no more. Like that's technically unheard of in the great span of humanity. So, I think you just sort of have to pick up and move on after that. But that aside,
everybody else got reparations, so I'm told.
Yeah, I think you've been lied to, but that's a whole nother story.
Wait, who got reparations?
Right.
I've been told when the reparations debates happens, the statement that I hear is other groups received reparations for transgressions against them.
Like whom?
Yeah, I was going to walk through the list of
my argument.
usual suspects.
It's somebody else's argument. I don't know all the fine details.
No,
Okay.
no, there's a list of usual suspects. So we got a few names popping up in the chat. The Japanese, the Native Americans, and even, the people that Hitler was after, like, the whole deal. What was really going on in the majority of these cases, whether it's, let's talk about the natives and the Japanese for the most part, right? This is all around World War II for one, but and natives are actually way older. But the whole point is, you're talking about individual groups with individual claims with the actual state of America, or even Germany, if we're talking about the other groups. But when we're talking about these claims, we're talking about a claim that has a legal precedent. There is no legal precedent for a group of people essentially being forced to free their property and then being, told to pay money to their freed property 1,000, well, not 1,000, but 100 or something years after they freed the property and they're dead and gone. Like this is like historically unheard of, but that's kind of the deal, because the Japanese were like interned in camps, and they actually got to sue America for their legal property that they had legal paperwork for, or because the Native Americans have actual treaties with the government that are over 100 years old in some cases, and they got to sue based on those grounds. It's not quite the same argument as, every person with brown skin is owed a debt. It's a very loose comparison.
Agreed. Agreed. And the Native American thing, so I don't know if it's repaired. I mean, because like they got a couple of things here and there, but they lost an entire country. Like it's like, yeah, we're gonna take all 50 of these states, but here's a casino. It's really like, did they really repair it at that point?
Right, and that's the other side of it. There's a deeper kind of conversation, and it's weird we got sucked into the reparations conversation. But the thing is, can you ever really be repaid that debt?
Nah. Nah. I mean, even if they gave it back right now, even if they gave America back, it's still like, now that we're done with it, you know. I
Right,
mean,
like
it's
what
yeah.
do could you like set us up really nicely in Africa somewhere? Could you like make us kings over in Africa? Like that's really how far back. I want you to fix the whole problem. We was
Well,
kings, and I want to be king again.
well, I mean, they actually what is that, Liberia? That's what the whole premise behind that was. And
Yeah, and we went
became
over there and
problematic.
immediately we immediately enslaved the Liberians, but that's a story we'll tell at another time.
No, that's a story of hypocrisy. Yeah, I agree. Like, slavery is wrong, but give me where the slaves at. And
It's
I
like
don't think we ever repaired them. We ever gave them reparations.
is Bud accurate here? Even Obama gave the Holocaust survivors reparations.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't see the point in America giving the Holocaust survivors reparations.
And I don't know if it's that simple either, because one, I mean, look, I don't want to get into all the Holocaust stuff. That's a whole rabbit hole I try to avoid. But the thing is, like, there are people who have actual claims on paper that are legal arguments, where it's like you're making individualized arguments versus an entire ethnicity is owed money. And that's
Yeah,
really the main difference.
good point.
Wait, what's the difference in what you're saying? You're making a legal argument that the
All
entire
right. Like if the Nazis chased you out of your little town in southern Germany or whatever, and you owned property and you had assets or whatever that were in your family's name, and then now 65, hell, 80 years later, you can trace back through the documents and to prove that this was my family's property and the Nazis did confiscate our stuff. Somehow or another, if the owners of that stuff happen to be American, or you can sue them in an American court, then you can get money from that, right? But that's an individualized claim. That's you tying yourself to your family's history and having the documentation to back up that connection, versus the American reparations argument is like, listen, I'm black people deserve some money, so hook a nigga up. These are radically different claims and processes.
Sir Tice in the building with the $5 super chat. He says 50% of black men eligible to vote do not. Oh wow, 50% black. Yeah, 50% of black men eligible to vote do not. Yet we've bought into the talking point of we need to get ex-cons to vote. They're a small group. Fair point. Fair point. Fair point. And at men, I didn't see that Sir Tice super chat. Like you can like click on them yourself and make them pop on the screen. Click on them. You can click on them yourself, make them pop on the screen. Where we at? All right. Let's get in. Let's see where we at.
I will say this though. I want to throw out one caveat because I'm petty like that, and I reserve the right to be petty and whenever I choose. But I will support reparations if it only went to black men. I will throw all my arguments out the window if women didn't get a dime.
I hear you. But no. In all seriousness, I think you are serious. But in all seriousness, yeah, when it comes to reparations, regardless, I've heard the arguments, fine arguments on many sides. But at the end of the day, especially if it's something, yeah, like you're saying, something for black men, like I'm not going to be opposed to something that I think will help. I can hear the argument as to why it technically don't make sense, but it's a lot of stuff that like some of the Asian hate bill shit don't make no sense to me. But whatever, they fighting for their shit and they got some shit passed. Oh well. So so I am pragmatic in that sense that to where regardless of the arguments that can be laid out, if I think it'll help black men, I'm either for it or I'm the damn sure not about to get in the way of it. And that's where I'm at with it. But okay, going back further right here, reparations should give black men specific focus due to number one, the exclusivity of treatment from the onset of slavery to roughly 1800, a time period where black males were sought after to a greater degree than even black women for enslavement. Their prioritization of lynching and terrorism mistreatment, the designation that they only were allowed 3/5 of vote when given the right, then terrorized not to even be able to use it, the targeted campaign to be brutalized and killed by law enforcement, and number 5, the target of hyper incarceration policies from Reconstruction, convict leasing through to the 1970s prison industrial complex to now. Targeted wealth declines due to the impact of education inequalities, neighborhood effects, workplace discrimination, parenting, access to credit rates of incarceration, and many other factors. Research has shown that black males are more likely to experience race gaps and intergenerational mobility largely reflect the poor outcomes for black men. The report is another contribution to the growing literature showing that race gaps in the intergenerational persistence of poverty are in large part the result of poor outcomes for black men. Specifically, Chetty et al. Show that black men born to low-income parents are more likely to end up with a low individual income than black women, white women, and especially white men. That said, reparations for black males should be commensurate with what they've experienced both contemporarily and historically. Don't know if anyone wants to jump in on that one, but targeted for growth, reparations, and we almost at the 14th one here. Reparations for every black boy born. Okay, hold on. Reparations for every black boy born with $10,000 in an investment account. The investment included in the account should be an S&P 500 ETF or mutual fund. This account shall not be drawn upon until the child becomes an adult and has had the financial training outlined in previous paragraphs for provision 2. See article here. It was something very similar, I believe, talked about in on the Black Lives Matter, where they was basically they said something similar. Every black person should get something like that, basically. I don't know if y'all got any commentary on any of that before we go to the final one.
I think the logistics of that is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And then you would literally start getting into like, well, what is a black person really? Like the same way, people, ask the whole "what is a woman" question, because $10,000 is like, a goal now. You putting money on the table, you're creating all kind of weird profit motives for people to do strange things. And so, like, who is this money going to be restricted from? Like, how are you going to define black so that you really restrict it to just black people? Remember, who was on the panel? Was it yesterday? I was on the panel with you, and what was that? Light skinned guy was Cajun, and somebody in the black was like, "Hey, bro, you Asian or what?"
Hey, hold on, real quick. Time out. Yeah, that was funny. Hey, Rod, if you're saying somebody straw manned, I don't. Explain what you mean. Explain what you mean.
No, even if you limit it to just black boys, I'm still making the argument. Like, it kind of creates a weird thing.
Hold on, wait. When I read it from Dr. Tia Johnson, what was written there, it was black boys. Black Lives Matter had something that was similar, but it was for every black person. I thought I made a clear distinction that I wasn't saying that he was saying every black person. He was saying every black boy. Black Lives Matter was saying every black person. Hood with the "what is black." Oh, okay. Yeah, explain that. Yeah, I don't like when people just throw out straw man without explaining what they're talking about. I mean, I understand you only got limited characters in the chat room. You might be driving, but yeah, let us know what you're talking about so we can possibly address it. Thank you very much.
No, let's grab the bull by the horns. Like this whole beef between the FBA, ADOS crowd, and the foreign black people. It literally is like the definition of black is now changing a little bit. That's what the ADOS definition is really about. You're not just black, you're American black, and that means something specific. So now how you divide the pie when it comes to the not 100% slave blood Negroes?
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, and my bad, Rod. I didn't see you ask for the link. I didn't see that at all. My bad. And shoot, I'm about to. I was trying to get off the air, but I'm gonna send it to you right now, real quick. But here we go. So Hood, if you can you see? Do you got to pull it up, or do I need to scroll it down so you can see the next one? So you can read the next one while I send the email. You can see it, can't you?
Number 14, the United Nations. Okay. Let's go. 14, United Nations. We charge the U.S. with the genocide of the black male. According to the United Nations definition, and much of what's listed here, black men have been subjugated, neglected, targeted, and killed to great enough degree to warrant an investigation that covers both contemporary and historical mistreatment. I'm against that for purely nationalistic reasons, in the sense that I don't want another. First of all, the United Nations isn't really real. The United Nations is something mostly funded by American tax dollars, and it kind of acts as if it's like its own independent body. But listen, whoever pays your bills kind of pulls your strings. And I don't know that I want some international quasi-official governmental agency judging America. Like, America needs to judge America because there's no country greater than us, basically. So that's kind of how I look at that. Like, the United Nations don't got nothing to say about what we do here.
Interesting. Let me see. I was trying to send that email. Oh, I see, Raj. You said that you don't want to come up now. Too late. But no, I apologize for missing your missing your request for the link when you was able to come up. But okay, cool. If you're not able to now, no biggie. But yeah, according to the United Nations definition, the United Nations, we charge the U.S. with the genocide of the black male, according to the United Nations definition of much of what's listed here. Black men have been subjugated, neglected, targeted, and killed to great enough degree to warrant an investigation that covers both contemporary and historical mistreatment. Yeah, that's the end of the list. Like I said, some of it was tedious. Some of it, there was some of it. I mean, if you came later in the show, you probably got the perception that it was just mostly disagreement with it. Like that ain't what that's in no way, shape, or form what I set out to do here. Like definitely in the beginning portions of it, there was everything was pretty much agreed with. I mean, the first thing on it was family court reform, where that was everything in there was pretty much excellent. Everything in there was excellent, and so I definitely support this. But like I said, it's some details that I that ain't really hot button issue for me. But definitely overall, this was definitely written in the spirit of what would help Black men and boys. The education portion of it would definitely help Black boys, and that's definitely a lot of help needed there. The affirmative action part of it, he talked about get Black men in basically double minority status. That was probably the first disagreement where hood servers made a good argument why just scrapping affirmative action altogether may be a better way to go about it. And so on targeted homelessness programs, targeted unemployment programs, making reforms to law enforcement. Where else? Intimate partner violence, homicide/homicide police reform. Definitely like that. Things need to be done. Definitely in that realm. Health, targeted cancer campaigning, treatment, and recognition. Targeted small business support, Social Security and life insurance family support, paternity leave for fathers, reverse voter disenfranchisement, and what else? What was the other ones? Black male specific reparations for transatlantic slave trade through 21st century hyper incarceration, and the final one that Hood wasn't feeling at all, the United Nations. The United Nations, we charge the U.S. with genocide of the Black male, and that pretty much wraps up the Dr. Tiasan Johnson 14-point Black male political agenda. I definitely applaud him for putting it together, writing it all out, and it's very well thought out. And and I recommend everybody to read it. I recommend everybody go and subscribe to Dr. Tiasan Johnson and give that brother your support. The contributors on here as BGS Itmore, shout out to him, Adam Itmore, David Williams, Stuart D. Knight, Tristan J, Brian M, and Chief in the South. And that is it. Definitely enjoyed this. It was pretty damn tedious, but I definitely enjoyed it. And holy shit, where did y'all go? Oh no, I made it smaller like that. All right, there it is. There y'all go. Yeah. So yeah. Any final thoughts, final takeaways on it? If y'all got anything to add on it? Wait, hold on. Before y'all do that, shout out to Nick Taylor says my great grandparents had indentured servants. So that means I would get out of there. So that means I would owe people monies for something that had nothing to do with me. Nah, I'm good. Yeah, Nick Taylor's Black. If it's those that don't know. But shout out to Nick Taylor. Do appreciate the super chat. And Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, well, Sifebud is saying Dr. T said he's open for other brothers' input for edits. And so, yeah, interesting. I do hope if anything comes from this, it just to spark a conversation. More brothers examine this and look at it, and because we talk about politics and political change and gaining political power and all of this, and I don't even think most of us even know and understand what an actual black male-centered political agenda would even look like. So that was my biggest motivation in even in doing this show. So
there's one thing I think. I'm sorry. There's one thing I think is I at least want to say, because when you start to mention when you're going to talk about politics, and in this document in particular, I think I want to address this angle of it. I think Dr. Hassan Johnson, and you could at least see the list of names of people on there. There's people that are not necessarily on the right wing of politics, and so I think this document is a little bit influenced by the left leaning view of things. And I think that the counter, or at least the corollary to this, should be something a little bit more right wing, black male centered, and then you can sort of see where the overlap is. So you got like the best ideas coming from dudes who are a little bit left leaning, and then the best ideas coming from dudes who are a little bit right leaning, and combine those two and see what sticks.
Well, the problem with that is that black male conservatives tend to not look at it in terms of
race. I
helping,
know.
They don't look at it in terms of race and specifically helping black men, specifically. So that's why, I mean, that's part of the failure in black conservatism, or more specifically black male conservatism. They don't address black men. It's like they just want to, I guess, integrate into the larger machine. And there's technically nothing wrong with that, because I think that's the inevitability of this whole American machine, is that everybody would just be integrated into it. So, but seeing as they don't look at things and see things in terms of race, they see it in terms of views, ideology, so forth and so on, like that it'll probably never happen in that regard. I do think there is a place for someone who's not so much on the left. I'll just say right of center. Somebody who's right of center to also put together something targeted for black men, because I mean I would love to see black men carve out their place in there. I know you agree with me. Carve out their spot, their place in the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party, which I don't think is truly out to serve us in a meaningful way. But so I would like to see it. I would like to see it go in that direction, but it still would be it'd be a lot of work to do. It still be a lot of work to do.
I think the black.
But he
I think the black right wing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hong Kong. I just Lil Big Nate says, I just got here. Is there any talk of family facilitating marriage, misandry, fathers in the home? The child custody, or the child custody reform portion of it dealt with that, because all the things that it would want to, all the benefits would de-incentivize baby mamaism. So put it like that. The family.
Yeah, I think they addressed it without addressing it too specifically, but they kind of got to the issues that make it possible or impossible.
Yeah. The family court reform part did. It addressed, I mean, you said it best. It addressed families without specifically saying we're addressing families here, but it basically would strip away all the power and incentives for women to not be on board with the man in terms of a traditional family. Because
here's the irony.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, here's the irony about the whole facilitating marriage thing. And this is why, I joke about misogyny and all that, but it really is it's almost like mathematically simple, where the less options you give women, the more family oriented they become. Like it's just it's a mathematical certainty. If you take away all of these artificial abilities that women have, they suddenly love their children and husbands again.
Yeah.
Is it love when they have to do it? Like, when it's because it seems like
I'm
they
not
only
going
let
down
them get
that road.
forced. Yeah.
I'm not doing that with you, GC. I'm not. We're gonna keep the dream alive. Niggas
I
need the
love you
dream.
because Social Security don't exist, and I'm gonna need to live with you in my old age. I don't. Is that
Niggas need the dream, bro. People need something to dream about.
okay?
Yeah.
Well, we'll take that from them.
Like, don't take that from them. No, that's all I'm asking you. Don't take that from people. People need that dream, I think, though. Like, all jokes aside, I really do think that's true. People need that dream, that idea that she really does love me for me. And I question whether or not, like, did we destroy that concept? Like, that's a whole different conversation, by the way. But like, is that concept being destroyed? That, is it even possible to think that anymore? But that's a whole nother deal.
Yeah, Little Big Nate. Here's the link to the agenda right there. I just put it in the chat room. So definitely go and check that out and read it for yourself. Definitely go check it out, read it for yourself. All right, so we about to wrap this thing on up. We are closing in on 4 hours in. So thank you to everybody who supported the stream. Appreciate each and every one of you for coming on through. Everybody who liked, share, subscribe, super chatted, cash app. Yeah, Nate, I would like for you to I'd like for you to do a show on this one. As you can see, it can be tedious. The show might last a lot longer than what you expect, because I didn't know he was going to be here for 4 hours. But it can. And the Freeman's Journal was saying no panel. Man, I don't got a panel in me. I'm already 4 hours in. I'm sorry. And I would love to do one. I would love to do one for this. But I can't. I got to go. But thank you, everybody who participated in any way, shape, or form. And with that said, we are out of here. Peace. We gone.